The hostess looked at her screen, then at me, then passed me toward the dining room. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Calder. The reservation is for 8. There are 8 people at the table," I said. She lowered her voice. "Yes, ma'am." Through the glass partition, I could see every one of them. My son, Evan, sat with his back half turned to me. Paige was beside him in a red blouse, glowing under a gold banner that said, "Happy Birthday." Her parents were there. Her sister and brother-in-law, Lauren and Scott, a couple I'd met twice at Paige's house, 8 chairs, 8 water glasses, 8 folded napkins. No mistake, no empty place waiting for me. Paige spotted me and stood so quickly her chair scraped the floor. Evan turned then. For 1 second, his face told me everything his mouth hadn't yet admitted. He knew. Paige hurried toward the host stand wearing the tight smile people use when they're trying to make you cooperate with your own embarrassment. "Ruth, you're here." It was a peculiar thing to say to someone you had personally invited. In my hands, I was holding a little silver box of dark chocolates. They had been Frank's favorite. I'd planned to put one beside my plate, not in a mournful way. Frank hated being mourned theatrically. He used to say if anyone played Wind Beneath My Wings at his funeral, he would come back and shut off the electricity. I tightened my fingers around the box. "The hostess says there isn't a seat." I know. It got a little complicated. Behind Paige, a waiter placed a white cake in the center of the table. The icing was deep green with gold letters. "Congratulations, Paige." The birthday banner suddenly seemed less like a celebration and more like a piece of evidence nobody had remembered to remove. Paige touched my forearm. "My promotion became official this afternoon." "That's wonderful, thank you. It's just been such a long process, and everyone was already coming, so we thought we could celebrate both things. Both things. Your birthday and my promotion." I looked at the cake again. The hostess pretended to rearrange menus. She was young enough that she hadn't yet mastered the adult skill of appearing deaf while a family dismantled itself in public. "Where did you think I was going to sit?" I asked. Paige's hand left my arm. "They have seats at the bar." For a moment, I honestly thought she was suggesting we all move there. That was how slowly my mind accepted what she meant. "You want me to sit at the bar? Only until dessert. Then Lauren and Scott are leaving early, and you can come sit with us. It's not ideal, obviously." "No," I said. "It isn't." She glanced toward the table. Everybody had gone very still except Gordon, Paige's father, who was studying his water glass as though someone had hidden instructions in it. Evan finally stood. Relief rose in me so fast it almost hurt. I thought he was coming to say this was ridiculous. I thought he would pull over a chair or give me his, or tell the hostess we'd wait for a bigger table. Instead, he stopped on Paige's other side. "Hey, Mom." His eyes moved over my blue dress. "You look nice. You told me to wear this." "Yeah, I remember." The 3 of us stood there, trapped in the politeness of Bellini's entryway, while a pianist played something soft and expensive near the bar. Evan rubbed the side of his jaw. He had done that since college whenever he wanted time to manufacture a reasonable explanation. "Paige didn't know the promotion decision was coming today," he said. "That doesn't explain the chair. The reservation was hard to get, but she got it. 3 weeks ago. And 3 weeks ago, how many people did she expect at my birthday dinner?" Paige folded her arms. "Ruth." I said I'm sorry. She hadn't, but pointing that out would have made me sound petty, and Paige understood that. She was very talented at arranging conversations so that correcting her became a character flaw. Evan looked toward the table. Marlene, Paige's mother, gave a small, uncertain wave. Marlene was wearing the pearl earrings I had helped her choose before her anniversary trip. 2 months earlier, I had driven her home after an eye procedure and spent 6 hours in her living room changing channels because she couldn't focus on the television. She had held my hand and called me the sister she never had. Now she looked confused to see me standing there. "Can we just make this work tonight?" Evan asked. "Please?" "How?" "You could have a glass of wine at the bar. Order whatever you want. It's on us." I almost laughed. He was offering to buy me dinner alone at my own birthday party. I don't want a glass of wine. Then have iced tea. I don't know, Mom. Paige's family drove all this way, and this is a big night for her. Can you be flexible just this once? Just this once. There are phrases that arrive carrying their own history. I had been flexible when Evan and Paige's furnace failed on Christmas Eve, and 12 people came to my house with 4 hours' notice. I had been flexible when they stored a sectional sofa in my spare room for 11 months. I had been flexible when Paige changed Thanksgiving dinner from 2 o'clock to 6, then arrived at 7:30 with a grocery store pie and a headache. But birthdays make fools of us. Even at 68, some small, embarrassing part of me had believed this night would be different because it was mine. Paige sighed. I knew this would happen. Evan turned to her. Paige. No, I did. I told you she'd take it personally. I looked at my son. He looked at the floor. That was the answer to a question I hadn't wanted to ask. This wasn't something they had discovered when they arrived. They had discussed my reaction in advance. They had pictured me at the host stand, learning there was no place for me. And the problem they had tried to solve was not where I would sit. It was how difficult I might be about it. The hostess spoke carefully. Mrs. Calder, I can check whether we have a small table opening soon. It would be separate, but closer to the dining room. Thank you, I said. That's kind of you. Paige brightened. See? That could work. I'm going home. Her smile vanished. Ruth, congratulations on your promotion. I turned to Evan. I wanted to say something a mother in a movie would say. Something clean and devastating that would follow him for years. What came out was, your collar's folded under. He automatically reached behind his neck to fix it. I walked away before he finished. Near the door, an older couple sat on a bench waiting for their table. The man wore a brown suit and white sneakers, and the woman had one hand tucked through his arm. They looked content to be waiting together. I held out the silver box. Would you like some chocolates? The woman blinked. Oh, we couldn't. Please, they're good ones. The man accepted them with both hands. Are you sure? My husband loved them, I said. He'd be offended if they went to waste. I made it outside before my eyes filled. The valet asked for my ticket. I gave it to him and stood beneath the striped awning while cold air worked its way through my dress. Bellini's windows glowed behind me. If I turned around, I could have watched them return to the table. I didn't. The valet brought my car, an 11-year-old silver Camry that Frank had maintained as though it were a member of the family. He used to keep peppermints in the console and complain when I left grocery receipts in the cup holders. 2 years after his death, I still found myself hiding receipts before remembering there was nobody to annoy. I sat behind the wheel without starting the engine. My phone rang. Evan. I let it ring until the screen went dark. Then Paige called. Then Evan again. On the 4th call, I answered because motherhood trains certain reflexes too deeply to remove. Mom, where are you? In my car. You shouldn't drive if you're this upset. I'm not drunk, Evan. I didn't get my complimentary iced tea. He exhaled. Come on. There was noise behind him. Silverware. Voices. Someone laughing too loudly. Did you go back to the table? I asked. A pause. Paige is upset. That wasn't my question. What do you want me to do? Stand in the lobby all night? I looked through the window. From the parking lot, I could see only the top edge of the birthday banner. No, I said, go eat your dinner. You're making it sound like I did this on purpose. Did you know there wasn't a seat for me? Mom, before I arrived, did you know? It was a bad setup. That's not an answer. We were going to figure it out. When? Can we talk tomorrow? This is turning into a whole thing, and Paige can't even enjoy what she worked for. I started the car. Frank had always insisted I let the engine run 10 seconds before shifting into reverse. He had theories about machinery that may or may not have survived the 80s. Enjoy your dinner, I said. Mom, wait. I hung up. The drive home took 17 minutes. I knew because Frank used to time every route as if shaving 40 seconds off a trip to the pharmacy might earn him a medal. I stopped at every yellow light. I signaled even when no one was behind me. I drove with the exaggerated care of someone whose life had become fragile in a way nobody else could see. At home, the porch light illuminated a package beside my door. Paige had sent it that morning. Inside was a pale blue scarf and a card that read, "To the best mother-in-law a girl could ask for. Love, Paige." I carried it into the kitchen and set it on the counter. The house smelled faintly of the lemon oil I used on the dining table. The table was set for Sunday supper even though it was only Thursday. That was habit. On Fridays, I bought groceries. On Saturdays, I cooked. On Sundays, Evan and Paige came over unless something better appeared. I had already written the menu on the pad beside the refrigerator: pot roast, carrots, mashed potatoes, green beans. Evan liked the carrots cooked until the edges browned. Paige claimed not to eat potatoes, then took 2 helpings if I called them whipped Yukon Golds. My phone chimed. The first message was from Celia, my sister. "Happy birthday, old woman. Call me tomorrow so I can pretend I remembered before noon." The second was from Marlene. "Where did you go?" "Paige said you weren't feeling well. I hope you're all right." The third was from Evan. "You made that way more awkward than it needed to be. Paige feels terrible." I read it twice. Then I unzipped the blue dress and stood in my kitchen in my slip, holding the phone while the refrigerator hummed. I could have called him. I could have explained, softened, translated my hurt into language he could accept without feeling accused. I had done it many times. Instead, I opened the freezer. The roast I had bought for Sunday sat on the bottom shelf, wrapped in white butcher paper. I lifted it out, looked at the neat red price written in marker, and put it back. Then I closed the freezer door and turned off the kitchen light. In the dark, the house changed size. During the day, it was a 2-bedroom brick ranch with a kitchen Frank had remodeled twice because he didn't trust the first contractor or himself. At night, it became a collection of empty spaces. The hallway was longer. The dining room seemed to belong to people who no longer lived there. Every sound had room to introduce itself. I left the scarf and Paige's card on the kitchen counter. The blue dress went over the back of a chair because I couldn't stand the thought of carefully hanging it up. At 12:14, my phone lit beside the bed. Evan had sent a photograph. He and Paige were standing behind the cake with their arms around each other. Everyone at the table was smiling. The birthday banner had been cropped so that only the bottom points of the gold letters showed above their heads. In front of Evan sat the chair he could have offered me. Under the picture, he had written, "Paige is trying not to let the night be ruined. We'll call tomorrow." I turned my phone face down. Sleep came in ugly little pieces. At some point, I dreamed Frank was outside the restaurant, waving through the window, but nobody would open the door for him. When I woke, I was angry with him for being dead, which was unreasonable and familiar. At 8, I made coffee strong enough to punish me. I was still in my robe when Celia called. "Happy birthday +1, she said. "How does 68 feel? About 4 hours older than 67. Did you get cake?" I looked at Paige's congratulatory cake in my memory. Not exactly. Celia went quiet. She had a talent for hearing the part of a sentence a person was trying to hide. What happened? "Nothing I want to get into before coffee. You answered the phone. That means you've had coffee." "Nobody in our family speaks voluntarily before caffeine. I'm making it now. You're lying. I'm not lying. It's dripping." Ruth. Celia could stretch my name until it felt like she had hooked a finger through it. I told her there had been a problem with the reservation. I said they had miscounted. I said Paige received her promotion, and the evening shifted toward celebrating that. Each sentence was technically connected to the truth without resting its full weight on it. "How do you miscount the birthday woman?" Celia asked. It was crowded. Were they seating people according to height? "Celia, did Evan leave with you?" The coffee machine gave a final wet sigh. I carried my mug to the table. No. There was a pause long enough to feel deliberate. What did he do? He asked me to be flexible. Celia breathed in through her nose. She had been doing that since we were girls, usually before saying something our mother would have called unhelpful. I can be there in 40 minutes. No. 35 if I ignore the speed limit. I don't want anybody storming over. I don't storm. I arrive with purpose. You once threw a ham into Donnie Mercer's swimming pool. He called you stuck up. We were 19. I haven't lost my throwing arm. I laughed before I could stop myself. It came out thin, but it was a laugh. Celia softened. Come have lunch with me. Not today. Tomorrow, then. I have groceries tomorrow. For what? Sunday. The word slipped out by habit. Celia knew what Sunday meant. Are you still cooking for them? I don't know. Well, when you know, call me. And Ruth? What? You're allowed to be mad before you understand every side of it. After we hung up, I sat with my hands around the mug. That was the difference between Celia and me. Celia trusted anger the way some people trusted guard dogs. I wanted to see its vaccination records. At 9:30, Marlene called. Her voice was bright, then concerned, then bright again. How are you feeling this morning? I'm fine. Oh, good. Paige said you had one of your spells. My spells? You know, when the room gets too loud and you need to go home. I had no idea what she meant. I didn't have spells. I had once left a New Year's party early because Gordon and Rick were arguing about parking regulations at a volume normally reserved for aircraft. I wasn't sick, I said. Oh. The restaurant didn't have a seat for me. Silence moved across the line. Marlene lowered her voice. I thought you were coming for dessert. Who told you that? Well, Paige said you might prefer to join us later because it was becoming more of a work celebration. Did she tell you that before last night? There was another silence, this one less innocent. I don't remember exactly, Marlene said. Everything happened so fast. I could hear Gordon in the background asking where his brown belt was. Marlene covered the phone and told him it was in the closet where belts had lived for the last 40 years. Ruth, I feel awful, she said when she came back. If I had understood, I would have gotten up. It was the first thing anyone had said that made my eyes burn. You didn't know. I really didn't. I believe you. Paige would never intentionally, Gordon called again, this time asking whether the brown belt was brown on both sides. I'd better go, Marlene said. Can I call you later? Of course. She didn't. Just after 11, a car door closed outside. I knew the rhythm of Paige's heels on my front walk before she rang the bell. She stood on the porch, holding a white bakery bag. I brought you tiramisu. I don't like tiramisu. Her eyebrows lifted. Evan said you did. Evan likes tiramisu. I like cannoli. Paige looked down at the bag as if the dessert had personally misled her. Well, it's from Bellini's. I let her in. She walked straight to the kitchen, which was what family did in my house. On the way, she noticed the blue dress hanging over the chair. Her pace changed, but she didn't comment. The scarf and card were still on the counter. I see you got my present, she said. Yes, thank you. You don't like it. I haven't tried it on. It's your color. She placed the bakery bag beside it. For a few seconds, we stood facing the collection of objects that were supposed to prove she cared about me. Paige tucked a smooth strand of hair behind her ear. Last night was awful. Yes, I barely slept. Neither had I, but she said it with the ownership of someone presenting the primary injury. I never wanted you to feel excluded, she continued. What did you want me to feel? That's not fair. I'm asking. I wanted you to be happy for me. I was happy for you. Then I found out I wasn't invited to sit down. You were invited. You came. That's not the same thing. She opened the bakery bag, perhaps needing something to do with her hands. Inside was one square of tiramisu in a clear plastic container. A smear of green icing streaked the lid, probably transferred from the congratulatory cake. There were moving pieces, she said. Lauren and Scott weren't originally coming. Then Scott arranged for the champagne, and it would have been rude to tell them not to come. Ruder than telling me not to sit. I didn't tell you not to sit. The restaurant has rules. The restaurant didn't make the reservation. Her mouth tightened. This is exactly what I was afraid of. What were you afraid of? That no matter what I did, my promotion would become about your feelings. I stared at her. Paige could be generous in ways that required real thought. After Frank died, she had filled my refrigerator without asking what I needed and replaced my shower curtain because she noticed mildew along the hem. When Marlene's eyesight worsened, Paige researched lamps and bought 3 before settling on 1. She was not careless. That was what made her carelessness with me so hard to believe. You put a birthday banner over the table, I said. You asked what cake I liked. The banner was Evan's idea. The cake? We changed the order after I got the call. To your name. I worked 9 years for that promotion, Ruth, and I didn't ask you not to celebrate it. No, you just left in a way that made everyone feel guilty. Were they supposed to feel good? Her eyes sharpened. You could have stayed 20 minutes. Lauren and Scott left before 9. There would have been room. I arrived at 7. There was a seat at the bar. I didn't want to spend my birthday watching my family eat from across a room. Your family. Paige repeated it softly. You mean Evan. I meant everyone. No, you didn't. The words sat between us. There it was, not an excuse exactly, but the edge of something older. Before I could answer, Paige pulled out a chair and sat. Her shoulders dropped. Do you know what it's like, she said, to have your husband compare everything you do to his mother? My first instinct was to defend Evan. My second was to defend myself. I did neither. He says my roast isn't as tender as yours. He says you never buy jarred sauce. If I want to travel at Thanksgiving, you're alone. If I want Christmas morning at our house, you're alone. Every decision has this invisible chair in it, and you're sitting there whether you say anything or not. I looked at the chair across from her. That sounds like a problem with your husband. You enjoy it. The accusation landed because there was enough truth in it to hurt. I enjoy seeing my son. You enjoy being the person he needs most. I didn't raise him to humiliate me. I didn't ask him to. Then whose idea was the bar? Paige stood. For a second, I thought she might answer. Instead, she folded the top of the bakery bag with 2 precise creases. I came to apologize, she said. You haven't. I'm sorry you were hurt. That is not the same thing. I can't do this if every word gets examined under a microscope. She picked up her purse. At the kitchen doorway, she paused. Are we still coming Sunday? I almost said yes. The answer was already shaped in my mouth, rounded by years of routine. Yes, come at 6. Yes, I'll make the carrots Evan likes. Yes, we'll put a clean cloth over this unpleasant thing and set the table on top of it. No, I said. Paige turned. No, what? I'm not making Sunday supper. Because of last night. Because I don't feel like cooking. We could bring something. I don't want company. Her face changed, not wounded exactly, startled. In all the years she had known me, I had never closed my home to her. I had complained, rearranged, sighed, and accommodated. I had never simply said the door would not open. Fine, she said. I'll tell Evan. After she left, the tiramisu remained on the counter beside the scarf. At 4 that afternoon, I drove to the grocery store anyway. My body took the turns without consulting me. I put onions in my cart, then celery, then a bag of the small carrots Evan liked. In the meat aisle, I stood in front of the chuck roasts before remembering the one already in my freezer. A clerk wheeled past with a cart of flattened boxes. Need help finding something? He asked. No, I said. I'm trying not to. I returned the onions. The celery went back. I carried the carrots halfway to produce, then left them in the refrigerated case beside the bagged salads, which was not where they belonged. At home, Evan's truck was parked in my driveway. He sat on the front step with his elbows on his knees. When I got out, he stood, and I saw the expression he had worn as a teenager after denting Frank's car, worried, defensive, and already tired of being in trouble. You told Paige Sunday's canceled. Yes. She's been crying all afternoon. I took my purse from the passenger seat. Then you should be home with her. Mom, what are you doing? The question was too large for the groceries I no longer had. I walked toward the house. Evan moved aside, but when I reached the door, he said, "Are you really going to blow up the family over one chair?" I put my key into the lock. "No," I said. "I think one chair showed me something that was already blown up." Then I went inside without asking him to follow. The deadbolt had barely turned before he knocked. Not a polite knock. 3 sharp hits. A pause, then 2 more. "Mom, I know you can hear me." I set my purse on the entry table. Frank's old windbreaker hung from the coat hook, though nobody had worn it in 2 years. I sometimes thought grief was mostly deciding which ordinary things you were not ready to move. Evan knocked again. "You can't say something like that and walk away." I opened the door. "You said I was blowing up the family. I corrected you. Can I come in?" I stepped aside. He walked to the kitchen, stopping when he saw the blue dress over the chair and Paige's gifts on the counter. The tiramisu had begun to lean inside its plastic container, its layers sliding toward one corner. "Why didn't you put the cake in the refrigerator?" "It isn't cake." He said, "You know what I mean. I don't like tiramisu." He stared at me. "Since when?" "Since always." "No, you ordered it at Lorenzo's." "That was you. I ordered lemon ice." He looked at the container as though it represented a larger betrayal. "Well, Paige went back to get it for you. She brought home a leftover slice from the restaurant. You make everything she does sound bad. I'm describing a dessert." He pulled out a kitchen chair and sat down. There were 4 chairs around that table, all matching, all available. Frank had bought the set unfinished and spent an entire July staining it in the garage. One chair had a darker leg because he'd knocked over the can and tried to correct it with a different batch. Evan chose that one. "Paige came here to apologize," he said. "She told you that. She called me crying. She also told me I enjoy being the person you need most." His eyes shifted away. "So you talked about that before," I said. "I don't know exactly what she said. I just told you exactly what she said. Mom, I'm not doing word games. Neither am I." He leaned back and pushed both hands through his hair. At 39, he still got a cowlick near his crown when he was tired. Frank used to press it down with his palm when Evan was little, even after Evan became tall enough to object. "Okay," he said. "Paige feels like she comes second sometimes. To me, to the history, to the way things have always been. That sounds more reasonable. What does that mean?" "It means the way things have always been doesn't point a finger at me." His jaw moved. I filled the kettle. It was another reflex. If someone sat at my kitchen table, I made them something. Even anger apparently required a beverage. "Do you want coffee?" I asked. "No." I put the kettle down. He seemed offended by how easily I abandoned the offer. "Look," he said, "I should have handled last night differently." "Yes, I should have come out sooner. You should have come out at all." "I did come out. You came to ask me to sit at the bar. I was trying to find a solution." "For whom?" "For everybody. There were 8 people who already had chairs, Evan. The solution worked for them." He stood and went to the sink. He didn't need anything there. He just wanted to face a window instead of me. "The restaurant was packed," he said. "It wasn't like we could pull a table out of thin air." "When did you know?" He looked out at the backyard. I waited. A squirrel landed on the fence and startled itself. The kitchen clock made 4 small clicks. "Paige said there might be a seating issue," he said. "When?" "Earlier." "Earlier that evening?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "The day before?" "Why does the exact time matter?" "Because I'm trying to understand whether my son watched me get dressed for a dinner he already knew I couldn't attend." "I didn't watch you get dressed. You called and told me to wear blue. I said the blue dress looked nice on you. I didn't order you to wear it. That was Evan's worst habit." When cornered, he became a clerk at the complaints desk, correcting details until the original problem got tired and went home. "Did you know before I arrived?" "I knew there was a possibility." "What possibility?" "That Lauren and Scott would stay for dinner. They were sitting down when I got there. They helped organize the champagne. Paige couldn't exactly tell them to drop it off and leave. So you decided I would. No one decided you'd leave. You decided I wouldn't sit. He turned around. Why are you making me the villain? It was Paige's reservation. There it was, quick and ugly. He must have seen something change in my face, because he immediately added, I'm not blaming her. I'm saying there were a lot of moving parts. A minute ago, I was hurting your wife by making everything she does sound bad. Now it's her reservation. That's not what I meant. You don't seem to mean anything until you find out how it lands. He stared at me. Frank had once said arguing with Evan was like trying to catch a bar of soap in the bathtub. The tighter you held, the farther it flew. At the time, we had laughed. Standing in my kitchen, I wondered how often laughter had helped us avoid teaching him to stay in an uncomfortable conversation. Evan reached for his truck keys on the table, though he had never put them there. He patted his pocket and found them. Dad would hate this, he said. It was a small sentence. He delivered it softly, almost sadly, which made it crueler. Your father would have gotten up from the table. You don't know that. I was married to him for 41 years, and I was his son. Yes, you were. The room went still. Evan looked ashamed for half a second, then angry that I had seen it. What do you want from me? He asked. Do you want me to make Paige give back the promotion? Do you want me to call everybody who was there and announce that we're terrible people? I wanted you to save me a chair. That already happened. No, the dinner happened. The chair didn't. He paced once between the sink and refrigerator. So what now? You cancel Sundays? You stop talking to us? I'm talking to you right now, like I'm a stranger. I would be more polite to a stranger. He laughed once, without humor. Great. I surprised myself by sitting down. My knees had begun to shake and I didn't want him to notice. I'm not deciding the rest of our lives today, I said. I'm not making dinner Sunday. That is all I have decided. Because you want to punish us. Because I don't want to cook for you. You always cook. I know. He looked around my kitchen as if something reliable had vanished from it. What are we supposed to do Sunday? Eat somewhere else? That's not the point. No, I said, it isn't. He left without saying goodbye. From the living room window, I watched his truck back into the street. He sat there for a while, probably calling Paige. When he finally drove away, I went to the kitchen and put the tiramisu in the refrigerator, though I still had no intention of eating it. Saturday morning, Celia arrived at 10, carrying 2 travel mugs and wearing enormous sunglasses. I said we'd have lunch, I told her. I revised the schedule. Without asking me, it runs in the family. She handed me a mug. It contained coffee with too much cream and enough sugar to qualify as icing. You look terrible, she said. You look like an insect. These are prescription. They cover half your face. That's where most of my face is. Celia was 4 years younger than me and had been blonde for so long that even she no longer knew what color her hair actually was. She wore lipstick to the hardware store and kept a tire pressure gauge in her purse. Frank had adored her in measured doses. Her gaze traveled to the blue dress still over the chair. You wore that? Yes. He told you to? I had not told Celia that part. How did you know? It's the dress Evan likes. She took off her sunglasses. You used to wear yellow. I still wear yellow. No, you own yellow. That's different. I went to change. Celia drove us to a diner halfway between our houses, the kind with laminated menus and coffee cups thick enough to survive being dropped. We sat in a booth near the kitchen. She ordered French toast, bacon, and a side of hash browns, then informed the waitress she was watching her cholesterol. I'm watching it climb, she explained. I ordered soup. Celia waited until the waitress left before asking, Did he know? Yes. She didn't say I told you so. I appreciated the restraint so much that it irritated me. He says he knew there might be a seating issue. That's husband language for yes. It's coward language. Also, yes. I stirred a packet of crackers into my soup. Paige said she feels like she comes second. Does she? Sometimes. Celia's eyebrows rose. Not because I demand it, I said. I didn't say you did. You made a face. I have a face. It does things. Evan compares us. Frank compared every sandwich to the ones you made. That's different. Why? Because I was his wife, and Paige is Evan's. I set down my spoon. Celia tore a strip of bacon in half. You don't have to be the villain for Paige to have a point. I know. That doesn't mean she gets to lure you to a restaurant and make you hover near the coat check. I know that too. Good. I wanted to make sure we were being complicated in the correct direction. Despite myself, I smiled. Her expression softened. What are you doing tomorrow? Apparently causing the collapse of Western civilization by not making pot roast. Come to my place? I don't want to be your pity guest. You won't be. I need help moving a bookcase. You have a bad shoulder. You have a good one. We ate quietly for a minute. I realized I couldn't remember the last time I had eaten at Celia's house. She usually came to mine because mine was where holidays happened. When she invited me somewhere, I often had something to do for Evan. Pick up a shirt he'd left, wait for a delivery, cook the meal that kept all of us attached to a schedule I controlled. Okay, I said. Celia looked up. Okay, what? I'll come tomorrow. She nodded as if the answer didn't matter much, then pushed half her bacon onto my plate. Sunday morning, I woke at 6:20 without an alarm. By 8, the house was clean. At 9, I found myself standing in front of the freezer with my hand on the roast. I could thaw it. I could cook it and still go to Celia's. Evan and Paige could collect plates later. Nobody would have to say Sunday supper had happened, but nobody would lose it either. My phone buzzed on the counter. A message from Evan. We'll come at 6. We need to talk this out like a family. I read it twice, then typed, there will be no dinner here tonight. His reply came immediately. So that's it? You're shutting us out? I looked at the roast. The butcher paper had gone soft where my fingers warmed it. I put it back, closed the freezer, and typed, I said no to one meal. You are the one calling that the same as losing me. 3 dots appeared, vanished, then appeared again. Before he answered, a horn sounded outside. Celia leaned across her car and pushed open the passenger door. I took my coat from the hook beside Frank's windbreaker. For a moment, the old habit tugged at me. The carrots, the tablecloth, the clock moving towards 6, whether I participated or not. Then I locked the door behind me and got into my sister's car. Celia waited until I fastened my seatbelt before pulling away. You didn't bring gloves, she said. You said bookcase, not demolition. It's an aggressive bookcase. Why are we moving it? Because I don't like it where it is. Where is it? In the living room. Where is it going? She thought about that. Somewhere else. Celia's house was a narrow white bungalow with blue shutters she repainted every few years, always the same shade, always claiming it looked completely different. The front room was crowded with plants, framed prints, and furniture chosen without consulting any other piece of furniture. Frank used to call it early American yard sale. Celia called his taste funeral home comfortable. The bookcase stood against the far wall, 6 feet tall and packed with hardcovers, magazines, candles, 3 ceramic birds, and a glass bowl filled with matchbooks from restaurants that had closed decades ago. You could have emptied it before I got here, I said, and deprive you of participation? She handed me a cardboard box. For the next half hour, we removed books. Celia had no filing system beyond remembering where she had last seen something. A biography of Eleanor Roosevelt sat between a cookbook about soups and a paperback called How to Stop Worrying Forever. Did it work? I asked, holding up the paperback. I worried the author was overselling it. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket. I didn't need to look to know it was Evan. He had called twice during the drive. The second time, he left a voicemail. Celia glanced at my pocket. Do you need to get that? No. Good. That sounded judgmental. It was efficient. There's a difference. We filled 3 boxes. Once the shelves were empty, the bookcase moved 6 inches before catching on the rug. This is stupid, I said. Correct. We're going to hurt ourselves. Probably. Where do you want it? Celia pointed across the room. There. The opposite wall contained a piano she hadn't played in 15 years. Where will the piano go? Don't complicate things. We ended up moving the bookcase into the dining room, the piano 6 inches to the left, and an armchair into the space the bookcase had occupied. The armchair looked terrible there. Celia declared it perfect. She ordered sandwiches from a place down the street, then opened a bottle of white wine before noon. It's Sunday, she said. The rules are different. What rules? Exactly. We ate at her small kitchen table. Mine could seat 6 if we added the leaf. Celia's barely held 2 plates, the wine and a ceramic jar shaped like a cabbage. She bit into her sandwich. You missed my birthday last year. The sentence came without warning. I sent flowers. You sent flowers because you missed it. Marlene had that eye procedure. I remember. She couldn't drive. I know. Paige had a meeting she couldn't get out of, and Evan was out of town. I didn't ask why. You brought it up. I said you missed my birthday. I folded the corner of my napkin. Celia chewed, watching me. She had never been bothered by silence. As girls, she could sit beside our mother for 20 minutes after being asked a question, waiting for the adults to surrender. I offered to take you out the next week, I said. You offered Tuesday lunch at a restaurant near Evan's office because you were already going there to return his jacket. That's not fair. It's exactly fair. That's why you don't like it. I put down my sandwich. This isn't the day to list every way I've disappointed you. No, today is the day you came to my house because you finally had an opening in your schedule. I could go home. You could. She took another bite. You're very hard to feel sorry for, I said. I'm not trying to make you feel sorry for me. Then what are you trying to do? Make sure you understand that this didn't start at Bellini's. I stared at her. Celia wiped mustard from her thumb. Evan didn't wake up Thursday and decide you would accept anything. You've spent years auditioning for the role of easiest person to disappoint. That's a horrible thing to say. It's a horrible role. You think I made him do this? No. I think Paige made a reservation without a chair for you, and Evan let her. They own that. I also think you've canceled on me, shortened trips, left dinners early, and spent half our phone calls listening for Evan on the other line. I got used to it. So did they. The wine had turned sour in my mouth. You could have said something. I did. You sent flowers. I pushed back from the table and carried my plate to the sink. Celia remained where she was. If you want me to apologize for saying it today, I will. Do you mean it? No? Then don't apologize, see? Growth. I turned on the faucet harder than necessary. She came up beside me with her plate. I love you, Ruth. I'm also mad at you. Both fit. I'm learning everyone is mad at me. I imagine it's a refreshing change from everyone needing you. That almost started another argument, but my phone buzzed again. This time, the message was from Paige. We're at your house. Are you with Celia? A photograph followed. My own front door, taken from inside the entryway. They had used Evan's key. I showed Celia. Her mouth flattened. Do you want me to come with you? No. That answer sounded automatic. I looked at the photograph again. On the edge of the image, I could see Paige's red purse hanging from the coat hook beside Frank's windbreaker. Yes, I said, come with me. Celia didn't make a victory out of it. She wrapped our sandwiches, put them in her refrigerator, and found her sunglasses. Evan's truck and Paige's car were both in my driveway when we arrived. Through the front window, I could see movement in the dining room. Do you want me inside? Celia asked. I don't know. I can sit in the car. That would be ridiculous. I enjoy ridiculous things. We walked in together. The house smelled like roasted chicken. Evan had set the dining table with my white plates and everyday silverware. Paige stood at the kitchen counter, transferring mashed potatoes from a plastic container into one of my serving bowls. They both froze. Oh, Evan said. You brought Celia. Celia took off her sunglasses. I brought her. Paige looked from her to me. We didn't know where you were. I told you I wasn't having dinner. We thought you meant you weren't cooking, Evan said. So we brought food. On the counter sat a supermarket chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, and a foil pan of peach cobbler. He had reconstructed Sunday's supper with store labels still attached. "You let yourselves into my house." "I have a key." That explains how. It doesn't explain why. "We were worried. You texted to ask where I was after you came inside." Evan's expression hardened. "Can we not do this in front of Aunt Celia? She knows what happened." "Of course she does." Celia looked at him. "You say that like your mother took out an advertisement. This is family business. I am family. You know what I mean." "Yes," Celia said. "That's usually the problem." I touched her arm. "Could you give us a minute? Do you want me to?" The question itself was a gift. She would not decide for me, even when she thought she knew better. "Yes, I'll be on the porch." After she stepped outside, Paige put down the serving spoon. I told Evan coming here was a bad idea. He looked at her. "That's helpful." I did. "You also said we couldn't let this drag on." I said we should call her. She wasn't answering. "I was at lunch," I said. "People are allowed to be unavailable." Evan pulled out a chair. "Sit down, Mom, please. We brought your favorites." "You brought your favorites." His gaze moved to the mashed potatoes. "I'm trying," he said. "To do what?" "Fix this. By having Sunday dinner after I said there would be no Sunday dinner." Because canceling it was an emotional reaction. Of course it was emotional. "We're related." Paige leaned against the counter. She looked tired, without her usual careful makeup. "Ruth, what would make you feel better?" "I don't know yet. There has to be something." "Why?" "Because this can't go on indefinitely. It has been 3 days. It's affecting everything." "What is everything?" She glanced at Evan. He answered for her. "We fought all night." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you?" "Evan." "No, seriously. You've always had an opinion about our marriage. Now you're acting like it has nothing to do with you." I looked at Paige. She stared at the floor. "Did he tell you I have opinions about your marriage?" I asked. "He doesn't have to tell me." That was not an answer, but unlike Evan, Paige looked uncomfortable giving it. I began gathering the plastic lids from the counter. "Take the food home." "We brought it for you," Evan said. "I have food." "What food?" "The refrigerator is empty." "You looked through my refrigerator?" "I got ice. The ice is in the freezer." He opened his mouth, closed it, then laughed in disbelief. "This is crazy. Stop telling me my reaction is the problem. I'm telling you we can't win. We give you space. We're abandoning you. We show up. We're violating boundaries you never had before Thursday." The sentence struck closer than he knew. "You're right," I said. He blinked. "I didn't have them before Thursday." Paige looked at me then. I held out my hand. "I want the key." Evan stared at my palm. "What?" "The spare key to my house." "Mom, that's for emergencies." "This isn't one." "What if you fall? What if something happens and we can't get in? I'll give Celia a key." The words hurt him. I saw it happen. His face changed from anger to something younger. "So she replaces me now? No one is replacing anyone. I asked her to come with me today, and when I asked for privacy, she went outside. That's what the key requires." Paige touched his arm. "Give it to her." He pulled away. "Stay out of it." I tried to. "That's convenient." "Stop," I said. He took the key ring from his pocket. The brass key to my front door sat between a black truck key and a plastic tag from a gym he hadn't visited in years. He worked it loose with his thumbnail, dropped it into my hand, and closed my fingers around it. "There," he said. "Now you're safe from us." He walked out. Paige stayed long enough to put the mashed potatoes back into their plastic container. "I really did tell him not to come," she said. "Why did you come then?" She fitted the lid carefully. "Because he said, if I didn't, it would prove I never wanted you in the family." For once, there was no polish in her voice. She carried the food outside in 2 trips. I stood by the open door while Evan loaded it into his truck. He never looked at me. When they drove away, Celia came in from the porch. She glanced at the bare table, then at the key in my hand. "Do you want to go back to my place?" she asked. "No." "Do you want me to stay?" I looked at Frank's windbreaker, disturbed on its hook by Paige's purse. The house felt too quiet, but quiet was not the same as empty. I was beginning to understand that. "Yes," I said, "but only if you're hungry." Celia surveyed the kitchen. I could eat. I took 2 bowls from the cabinet and heated soup. We ate at the small kitchen table instead of the dining table Evan had set. Afterward, Celia washed while I dried. Neither of us mentioned that it was the first Sunday in years when I'd let someone else stand at my sink. Celia left a little after 9, taking the blue scarf with her because she said it would look better on someone who wore colors on purpose. "You can't steal my birthday present," I told her. "I'm not stealing it. I'm preventing it from becoming a kitchen fixture. It might be expensive. Then Paige can enjoy knowing it went to a good home." She wrapped it around her neck and posed beside the door. The pale blue did look good against her blonde hair, which annoyed me. "Fine," I said. "Keep it. I don't want it." "You just put it on." "I wanted you to make a decision." "Give me the scarf." She kissed my cheek and ran to her car with it. After she drove away, I found the brass key still on the kitchen table. I put it in the junk drawer beside 2 dead batteries, a roll of masking tape, and Frank's small red flashlight. The dining table remained set. 4 white plates, 4 water glasses, 4 sets of silverware. Evan had prepared places for himself, Paige, me, and the conversation he intended to win. I cleared everything slowly. The silverware went back in its drawer. The plates went into the cabinet. I shook out the napkins and folded them along their old creases. When I turned off the dining room light, I felt no victory. I felt like someone had left me in charge of closing a restaurant after everyone else went home. On Monday morning, I woke to a voicemail from Marlene. "Ruth Honey, just confirming Wednesday. The appointment is at 10:30, but they always make me fill out those same forms, so maybe we should leave by 9:45. Gordon says he can come, but you know how he gets in medical parking garages. Call me." I had forgotten about her appointment. It was written on my wall calendar in blue ink. Marlene Eyes 10:30. Paige had asked me 6 weeks earlier. She had a quarterly meeting. Gordon disliked driving downtown because the garage had narrow turns, and the last time he went, he exited through the employee lane and argued with a mechanical arm. I stood in front of the calendar with my coffee. Marlene needed a ride. That fact had not changed because of Bellini's. But another fact had changed. I no longer wanted every request from their family to pass through me as if I were the switchboard. I called her back. "Good morning," she said. "How was your Sunday?" "Quiet." She paused. "Ours, too." I wondered if Evan and Paige had taken the supermarket chicken to her house. I hoped somebody ate it. Wasted food offended me even when purchased during an invasion. "Marlene, I can't take you Wednesday." "Oh, I'm sorry for the notice." No, that's fine. Is everything all right?" "I have plans." I didn't. The lie warmed my face. "Of course," she said. "I'll ask Paige." I thought she had a meeting. She does, but maybe she can move it. Or Gordon can drive. He said he would. We both knew this should have ended the discussion. Instead, Marlene said, "I hope you don't think I had anything to do with Thursday." "I don't. I would never have sat there if I knew you didn't have a place." "I believe you." I asked Paige if we should wait, and she said you wanted to come later. My fingers tightened around the phone. When did she say that? At the house, before we left for the restaurant. You were all at Paige's house first. Yes. Gordon and I rode with Dana and Rick. Lauren and Scott met us there. I sat down. Marlene continued too quickly. Paige said you didn't enjoy big group dinners much anymore and would probably be happier coming when it quieted down. I thought it was your idea. It wasn't. I understand that now. Did Evan hear her say it? I don't know. He was upstairs changing his shirt. That answer was almost certainly true and still protected everyone just enough to be useless. What exactly did she tell you, Marlene? I don't want to get between you two. You called me. I know. I shouldn't have brought it up. Marlene. She sighed. She said you had asked to come for dessert. She said the birthday banner was so you wouldn't feel that the evening had forgotten you. I looked toward my dining room, so the 8 seats were always for 8 other people, I suppose. Did she mention the bar? No, of course she hadn't. A voluntary plan to arrive for dessert sounded thoughtful. A 68-year-old woman waiting alone at the bar sounded like what it was. "Please don't tell Paige I said anything," Marlene whispered. "She's under so much pressure right now." There it was again, the family tradition of placing the truth in my hands and asking me not to make it inconvenient. "I'm not going to call her and quote you," I said, "but if she asks whether we discussed it, I won't lie. She'll think I betrayed her. You told me what happened at my own birthday dinner. I should have kept my mouth shut. No, you should have asked me before believing I wanted to sit out my own meal. That was sharper than I intended." Marlene became quiet. "I'm sorry," I said. "You were lied to. I know that. I still should have noticed." "Yes," I said. "Maybe you should have." We ended the call politely, which is sometimes worse than ending one badly. At noon, Paige sent me a message. "I wish you would stop involving my mother in this." Marlene had lasted less than 2 hours. I typed 3 different replies. I didn't involve her. She called me. "Your mother had a right to know why I left. I wish you would stop making me responsible for the discomfort caused by what you did. I erased all 3. Then another message appeared. She's extremely upset and now says she won't go to her appointment because she doesn't want to inconvenience anyone. That one found its target. Paige knew it would. I called Marlene. "You are going to your appointment," I said when she answered. "Oh, Ruth, it's fine. My eyes aren't going anywhere. That is not medically comforting. I can reschedule. Gordon can drive you. He gets so tense in that garage." "Then take a car service." "I don't use those apps." "Call a taxi. They never know which entrance." Every objection had a solution. Every solution made me sound less caring for offering it. Finally, Marlene said, "You know the route." "Yes." The word slipped out with the old readiness. "Would you mind terribly?" she asked. "I hate to ask after everything." I closed my eyes. If I said yes, I would spend Wednesday morning beside Marlene, listening to her apologize for Paige until I comforted her. If I said no, she would tell Paige she had tried everything, and Paige would tell Evan I was punishing her mother for something she didn't do. There was no answer that couldn't be used to describe me. "I'm not available Wednesday," I said. It was the first time the lie sounded like a decision. Marlene inhaled. "All right, please don't cancel." "I won't." When we hung up, I felt miserable. That surprised me. I had expected a boundary to feel solid, maybe even noble. Instead, it felt like leaving a shopping cart in a parking space. I knew there were reasons, but I also knew somebody else would have to deal with it. I spent the afternoon cleaning the refrigerator. The tiramisu had developed a watery edge. I threw it away, rinsed the plastic container, then took it back out of the recycling because I didn't want to wash and save one more thing I never wanted. At 4, Evan called. I answered. "What did you say to Marlene?" "Hello to you too." "She's crying." Paige is crying. Gordon is furious because now he has to drive downtown. Gordon is a licensed adult. That's not the point. I'm beginning to think nothing is. You agreed to take her. I changed my mind. Because of us. Because I'm tired of being the automatic solution. She has an eye condition. She has a husband, he hates that garage. Then he can hate it while driving through it. Evan made a sound halfway between a laugh and a groan. "Who are you right now?" The question hurt more than I let him hear. "I'm your mother." My mother would never leave Marlene stranded. She isn't stranded. You know what I mean? I do. You mean the version of me who makes every inconvenience disappear before any of you have to feel it? No, I mean the version who cares about people. I gripped the edge of the counter. "Did you know Paige told everyone I wanted to come for dessert?" Silence. "Did you?" She was trying to avoid an awkward situation. She created an awkward situation. She didn't know what else to tell them. The truth was available. What good would that have done? Her parents would have felt weird. Lauren and Scott might have left. Yes. That single word stopped him. "You think they should have left," he said. "I think somebody should have. It was her celebration. It was my birthday. It became both. No, Evan, the banner was mine. The dinner was hers. I was decoration." He breathed into the phone. "Paige said you always resented her career," he said. I nearly dropped the phone from surprise. When have I ever said that? You make comments. What comments? About how busy she is, how she misses Sundays. I say she's busy because she is. It has a tone. Everything has a tone when you need it to mean something else. He was silent again. Then he said, "Maybe we all need some space." The words were meant to frighten me back into place. They did frighten me. My chest tightened immediately. I pictured Sundays passing without his truck in my driveway, holidays divided into negotiations, his voice becoming the voice of someone who called once a month and said he had been meaning to call sooner. I also pictured myself apologizing to restore what we had. "I think you're right," I said. He had no response prepared for agreement. "All right," he said finally. "All right." After we hung up, I stood in the kitchen until the refrigerator motor clicked off and the house became completely silent. I went to the junk drawer and took out the brass key. Then I called Celia. "Did I leave my scarf there?" she asked. "You stole it. So you remember." "Can I come by?" "Of course. I want to give you something." When I reached her house, she was outside in gardening gloves, cutting dead stalks from a row of black-eyed Susans. I held out the key. Celia looked at it, then at me. "Emergency use," I said. "Not permission to rearrange my furniture. That bookcase improved the entire house. It looks terrible." "It does." She took the key without ceremony and slipped it into the pocket of her jeans. Behind her, the garden beds were untidy from winter. Damp leaves covered the soil. A cracked clay pot lay on its side beside the steps. "I used to like doing that," I said. "What? Cleaning beds in the spring. You used to have that plot at the community garden. I gave it up when Frank got sick." Celia handed me a second pair of gloves. "You have 20 minutes before dark," she said. I put them on. The soil was cold and packed hard beneath the leaves. We worked without speaking, pulling away what had died to make room for things that had not yet decided whether to return. The first weed I pulled came up with such force that I sat down in the dirt. Celia looked over. Graceful. It fought me. It was dead. Then it had nothing to lose. She laughed and kept cutting stalks. By the time the light faded, we had cleared one narrow bed along her fence. My back hurt. My fingernails were black inside the gloves, and a damp patch had soaked through one knee of my slacks. I felt better than I had any right to. Celia made tea, and I stood in her kitchen trying to scrape soil from my shoes with the edge of an old grocery card. "You could call the garden," she said. "What garden?" "The community garden. I'm sure there's a waiting list." "You don't know that. I know people like tomatoes. There may be vegetables besides tomatoes. Not in a community garden. Everybody grows 12 tomatoes, then spends August begging strangers to take them." She opened a cabinet and removed 2 mugs. "Call anyway." I told her I would think about it, which was the same answer I had given for 3 years. At home, I found the garden's number in an old contacts book beside the telephone. The entry was under H for Hillside Community Garden, written in Frank's blocky handwriting. Beneath it, he had added, "Ruth's Dirt Club." I set the book down without calling. The house felt different now that Celia had a key. Not safer exactly, less sealed. Wednesday morning, Marlene sent me a photograph from a downtown cafe. She and Gordon sat across from each other in a booth, both wearing sunglasses. Gordon held up the parking garage ticket like a trophy. "We survived," she wrote. "Doctor says no changes." I stared at the picture longer than necessary. Gordon had driven. The garage had not swallowed him. Marlene had gone to her appointment. They had apparently found lunch without consulting me. That should have been unremarkable. Instead, it felt like discovering a stage set had walls behind it. I replied, "Glad everything went well." She sent a heart. No apology, no mention of Paige. It was almost a relief. I called the garden. A woman named Donna answered on the 7th ring, sounding as if I had interrupted her while she was carrying something heavy. Hillside. I'm calling about a plot. Of course you are. Everybody calls in spring. I used to have number 14. There was a pause. Ruth Calder? Yes. Frank's Ruth? The words caught me. Yes. Well, I'll be damned. You two used to grow those crooked cucumbers. They were an heirloom variety. They looked seasick. That was the variety. Donna told me there were no private plots available, but the common herb beds had been neglected, and volunteers were welcome on Saturday mornings. I almost declined. I had never liked common beds. People planted mint without containers and then behaved surprised when it conquered neighboring states. 8 o'clock, Donna said. Wear shoes you don't respect. Saturday, I arrived at 8:12 in Frank's old work boots. Donna was smaller than I remembered and louder. She hugged me before I had decided whether we were hugging. Her gray hair was tied with a red bandana, and she wore one gardening glove and one yellow rubber kitchen glove. We thought you moved, she said. No. Then we thought you got too fancy for us. Also no. Then somebody said Frank died. Yes. Her face changed. I'm sorry. Thank you. She squeezed my arm once, then handed me a rake. It was exactly the right amount of sympathy. 6 adults worked the common area. Nobody asked for my history. A retired accountant named Mel argued with Donna about compost temperature. A woman called Janice planted parsley in lines so straight they looked surveyed. 2 men repaired a broken border while disagreeing about whether the wood was level. I spent 3 hours pulling mint roots from soil they had threaded through like electrical wiring. At 10:30, my phone rang from the pocket of my jacket. I wiped my hand before checking it. Evan. My heart lifted so quickly I resented it. I stepped away from the beds. Hello? Mom. He sounded formal, as if confirming an appointment. How are you? Fine. You? Fine. Behind me, Donna yelled, If you put mint back there, Mel, I will bury you with it. Evan said. Where are you? The community garden. What are you doing there? Gardening. I know, but why? The question made me smile despite myself. That is generally what people do here. I mean, I didn't know you were going back. Neither did I. He was quiet. I waited for him to say he missed me. I waited for him to apologize, or ask whether we could talk, or even complain about Paige. That last one would have angered me, but at least it would have sounded familiar. Instead, he said, The contractor moved our start date. What contractor? For the downstairs floors. I told you about it, months earlier, maybe. Evan often mistook mentioning a possibility for sharing a plan. They start Thursday, he continued. We need to clear the dining room and den. All right. Paige has been trying storage places, but they're either full or want a 3-month minimum. I looked at the rake in my hand. What do you need from me? The spare room. Just for the furniture that can't go in the garage. My spare room already has your boxes in it. Mostly small stuff. There are 14 boxes, an office chair, 2 lamps, and a rolled-up rug. You counted? I can count without plotting against you. He sighed. Can we put the dining table in there if we move the boxes to one side? No. The word came more easily this time. It still left a mark. It would be for 2 weeks. The room isn't available. What are you using it for? I don't need to be using it. Mom. Evan. You have an empty room. You have a whole house. With the floors being replaced. Then rent storage. I just told you the problem with that. You told me it costs more than you want to pay. It makes no sense to rent 3 months for a 2-week project when you have space. It makes no sense to you. A wheelbarrow tipped behind me. Someone swore. Life continued with rude cheerfulness on the other side of the garden. Evan lowered his voice. Are you going to say no to everything we ask now? I'm saying no to storing more furniture. You've never cared before. I cared. I just said yes. What's the difference? I closed my eyes. The difference is, I thought saying yes made us close. His breathing changed. We are close, he said. Then why didn't I have a chair? He hung up. I stood beside the herb bed holding a silent phone. Donna approached with 2 bottles of water. She handed me one without asking what happened. Family? She said. Yes. They're why gardens have sheds. What does that mean? You can hide in them. She walked away. On Sunday, Paige called. I'm coming to get the boxes, she said. You don't have to get them today. Evan says you want them out. I told him I wouldn't add furniture. He said you made it clear everything needs to go. I did not. Well, that's what he heard. Paige arrived an hour later in leggings, an old college sweatshirt, and no jewelry. I had never seen her dressed for lifting. She brought packing tape, markers, and the expression of a woman preparing for a dental procedure. We stood in the spare room. The boxes lined one wall, some untouched, since Evan and Paige moved from their apartment 7 years earlier. 3 were labeled kitchen, though I knew one contained framed prints and another held extension cords. The rolled rug had developed a permanent bend in the middle. We can take the small boxes today, Paige said. Rick has a truck we can borrow next weekend for the rest. I didn't ask you to remove them. You told Evan the room wasn't available for more furniture. She pulled a strip of tape across a sagging box. You know how he hears things. Yes, I said. I'm learning. She glanced at me. We carried boxes to her car 2 at a time. On the 3rd trip, the bottom of one split open in the hallway. Silver napkin rings rolled in every direction. Paige crouched to gather them. I wondered where these were. You gave them to me. They were wedding gifts. You said you hated them. I do, but that doesn't mean I wanted them lost. They weren't lost. They were in a box labeled kitchen in my spare room. That is one definition of lost. I found one under the entry table. Paige sat back on her heels. Evan hasn't slept. I'm sorry, he keeps waiting for you to call. He asked for space. He didn't mean it. He said it. You know him. That phrase again. My fluency in Evan was being treated as an obligation to ignore his words. Why doesn't he call me? I asked. Because he thinks you want him to beg. I want him to tell the truth. About what? I looked at her. Why there were 8 seats. She stood with the napkin rings cupped in her hand. I already told you. You told me Lauren and Scott were added. You didn't tell me why you told your mother I had chosen to come for dessert. Paige's fingers closed around the silver rings. Marlene misunderstood. She repeated your words. She repeats everybody's words, usually wrong. Did you tell her I wanted to come for dessert? Paige looked toward the open front door. Yes, she said. Why? Because I didn't want my parents thinking I had excluded you. The bluntness of it surprised me. You didn't want them thinking it. No. But you were willing to do it. Her face hardened. I knew if I said there wasn't room, my mother would give you her seat and spend the entire night telling me she was happy at the bar. Then you'd be the gracious one. She'd be the martyr, and my promotion dinner would become a monument to what I did wrong. So you made sure I was the only one with a choice. You always have a choice, Ruth. No, I had an exit. She looked down at the napkin rings. I wanted one night, she said quietly, where Evan chose me without feeling guilty about you. The sentence was honest enough to hurt both of us. And did he? I asked. Paige gave a short, bitter laugh. He spent the whole dinner watching the door. She put the napkin rings back in the broken box. We carried the rest without talking. When her car was full, she stood beside the open trunk. There's no room for the rug. It can stay until next weekend. You don't have to do me favors. I'm not. I'm making a practical decision about a rug. For a moment, the corner of her mouth moved, not a smile, but the memory of one. Then she closed the trunk. That evening, I stood in the spare room. Empty rectangles marked the carpet where the boxes had been. Dust softened the baseboards. The office chair, lamps, and bent rug remained. But for the first time in years, I could walk from the door to the window without turning sideways. I opened the window. The room smelled stale at first. Then cool air came through, carrying damp soil and someone's distant wood smoke. On the sill, beneath a layer of dust, lay one silver napkin ring Paige had missed. I picked it up, walked outside, and placed it in my mailbox so she could collect it without needing a key. The napkin ring was gone by morning. Paige sent no message, but the mailbox flag had been left upright. I lowered it on my way to the garden. Donna had assigned me the common rosemary bed, which was less an assignment than a sentence. The plants had survived winter by becoming woody and hostile. Janice believed they needed aggressive pruning. Mel believed pruning before the next full moon would confuse the sap. Plants don't own calendars, Janice said. Neither do wolves, and they know when the moon is full. Rosemary is not a wolf. I cut away a dead branch. Has anyone considered that both of you could stop talking? Donna pointed at me with her trowel. That's why we brought Ruth back. Nobody had brought me back. I had called. Still, the phrase pleased me. At noon, Celia arrived carrying deli sandwiches and wearing my blue scarf. You said you didn't want it, I told her. I changed my mind. It does look good on you. I know. That's why I changed my mind. We ate on an overturned wooden border near my old plot. Number 14 now belonged to a quiet man named Victor who grew peppers in perfectly spaced rows. I expected to feel territorial. Instead, I felt embarrassed by the memory of how often I had corrected Frank's watering technique there. Celia unwrapped her sandwich. Your dirt club seems nice. You make them sound like organized crime. Donna looks capable of it. Donna shouted across the garden. I heard that. I meant organized community, Celia called back. My phone stayed silent in my jacket. I checked it twice anyway. Evan had not called since the conversation about the spare room. Paige had sent one message asking whether they could collect the remaining furniture Saturday afternoon. I replied yes, and nothing more. Celia watched me check the screen. Is staring at it helping? I was checking the time. There's a clock on the shed. I don't trust outdoor clocks. She let that lie pass without respect. After lunch, she helped me clear the rosemary cuttings. We worked comfortably until I mentioned turning the spare room into a place for seedlings. You hate growing from seed, she said. I don't hate it. You once said life was too short to spend 6 weeks wondering whether dirt was doing anything. I can change. Of course. But why seedlings? The question irritated me because I didn't have an answer. The empty room had started making demands. I wanted to fill it quickly to prove it had been reclaimed rather than merely abandoned by Evan's boxes. Seed trays seemed wholesome. A reading chair seemed independent. I had looked at paint colors online and nearly ordered a desk I did not need. I could use the room however I want, I said. Yes. You're making a face. I'm waiting. For what? To see if you want something? Or if you just want evidence that they don't own the room? I tied the bag of cuttings too hard and tore the plastic. You have become exhausting, I said. I've had more opportunities lately. At home, I left the spare room alone. Saturday afternoon, Paige arrived with Evan and Rick. Rick backed a borrowed pickup toward my garage while Paige stood behind it waving both arms, though he could see her perfectly well in the mirrors. Left, she called. My left or your left? Rick shouted through the open window. There's only one left. That's not how perspective works. Evan got out of the passenger side. He looked tired. I wondered whether he had lost weight, then became angry with myself for measuring the distance between us in his face. Where do you want us to start? Rick asked me. The rug is the hardest. Rug it is. Rick had the good sense to make the work ordinary. He discussed the weather, the truck's bad suspension, and a restaurant near his house that had started charging extra for bread. He did not mention Bellinis or family dinners, or why a rolled rug had suddenly become urgent after 7 years. Evan barely spoke to me. He and Rick carried the office chair outside, while Paige wrapped the lamps in old towels. I stayed near the doorway so nobody could later say I had hovered or disappeared. As they maneuvered the rug through the hall, it struck the entry table and knocked Frank's red flashlight from the junk drawer I had left open. The flashlight hit the floor and rolled beneath the bench. Sorry, Rick said. It's fine. Evan crouched and retrieved it. He pressed the switch. A weak beam appeared. Dad still had this? I still have it. He turned it over in his hand. He used to keep it in the glove compartment. He bought 3 identical ones. He only ever had one when I needed it. For a second, we smiled at the same memory. Then Paige came in carrying a lamp and said, "Evan, Rick's waiting." The smile left. He put the flashlight on the entry table instead of handing it to me. Once the rug was tied in the truck bed, Rick announced he would take the first load to their house. Paige said she would ride with him, but Evan told her to stay. "We need to talk," he said. Rick looked at me. "I could use help choosing a place for the lamps," I said. He understood. "Absolutely. Very technical." We carried the lamps to the garage, though they were not staying there. Behind us, Evan and Paige began arguing in low voices. The garage door was open. Their words traveled. "You're treating her like she did something to you," Paige said. "She asked for space. You asked for space. Because she was punishing you. Stop pretending you did that for me." Rick set down a lamp. "I can turn the radio on." "No," I said. I should have said yes. Paige's voice sharpened. "You keep telling everyone the reservation was my fault, but you knew. I didn't make the reservation. You told me not to change it." My body went very still. Rick picked up the second lamp. "I'm going to check those straps." He went outside. I walked back into the house. Evan and Paige stood in the spare room facing each other. Dusty rectangles marked the carpet around their feet. "What did you tell her not to change?" I asked. Neither answered. I looked at Evan. "What did you know?" He rubbed his jaw. Paige folded her arms. "Tell her." "This is between us," he said. "No, it isn't. That's the whole problem." "Paige, you've spent 2 weeks acting like I did this alone. You did make the reservation alone. And when Lauren said she and Scott could only stay for dinner, I called you. I said I'd increase the table or tell them to come for drinks. You said not to make a big production out of it." Evan looked at me. "That's not exactly what happened." "What did happen?" I asked. "The restaurant said a bigger table might not be in the alcove." "So?" "The alcove was important to Paige. It's private. It was my birthday. I know that." "Did you know there were 8 chairs?" "I knew there might only be 8. Paige laughed bitterly. He counted them. Evan turned on her. "Whose side are you on?" "I'm on the side where you stop using me as a shield." He stepped closer to her. "You told your mother Ruth wanted dessert only, because you said Ruth would understand. I said Mom doesn't care about formal dinners. You said she always makes things easy." The sentence landed with a quietness no shouting could have matched. I remembered Evan's first apartment, when he called because he could not afford the deposit and the moving truck. I remembered leaving Frank alone during a storm to pick Evan up from an argument with Paige, then lying about why he had needed me. I remembered changing Thanksgiving, Christmas, appointments, meals, and my own plans, each adjustment small enough to deny. She always makes things easy. To him, it had been praise. "Mom," he said, "I didn't mean you'd be excluded." "What did you mean?" "I thought you'd have a drink. Lauren and Scott would leave. You'd sit down. The night would keep moving. You pictured it." He opened his mouth. "You pictured me at the bar. I didn't picture you alone. Who was going to sit with me?" He had no answer. Paige sat on the windowsill. Some of the fight went out of her. "I wanted him to choose me," she said. Evan looked at her as if she had broken an agreement. "I know," I said. She met my eyes. "I'm not proud of that, but you did it." "Yes." "Paige, stop," Evan said. "No." She asked for the truth. "You don't get to dump this on me because you feel guilty. I'm not dumping it on you. I'm giving you your half." He turned to me. "See what this is doing to us?" The question was so familiar in shape that I almost answered the old way. I almost reassured him that his marriage mattered more than my feelings. I almost told Paige not to blame him. I almost stepped between them and took the sharpest edge for myself. Instead, I said, "I didn't bring either of you into this room." "You cleared it to make a point," Evan said. "I cleared it because you told Paige I wanted your things gone." "She did want them gone," Paige said. He stared at her. "Whose idea was it to collect everything today?" "Yours." "You agreed. Because every time your mother says no, you tell me I caused it." They faced each other with an exhausted anger that had very little to do with furniture. I felt suddenly intrusive in my own house. "Take the lamps," I said. "Then both of you need to leave." Evan shook his head. "No, we're finishing this conversation. Not here. So you can talk to Celia about it? This is not about Celia. She's got your key. She's at the garden. She's suddenly your whole support system because she tells you exactly what you want to hear." That was so inaccurate I almost laughed. Celia has been telling me things I don't want to hear for 40 years. She hates me. She doesn't. She always has. She threw a ham in a pool for me once. That is not the same as hating you. Paige blinked. "What?" "Nothing." Rick appeared at the door. "Straps are good." The three of us looked at him. He slowly nodded. Terrific atmosphere. Paige took one lamp. Rick took the other. Evan remained in the empty room. "I was trying to keep everyone happy," he said after they went outside. "No, you were keeping yourself out of an argument. That's not fair." "It is fair. I was simply the person you expected to pay for it." His eyes reddened. "I miss Dad." The words were real. They were also a door he had used before. "I miss him too. I don't know how we got here." "Yes, you do." For once, I did not cross the room to comfort him. He left without taking the flashlight. That night at 11:20, my phone rang. Evan's name filled the screen. I answered on the fourth ring. "Can I come over?" he asked. His voice sounded rough. "Why?" "I need to talk." "To me?" A pause. "Who else would I be talking to? I mean, do you want to talk to me about what happened between us, or do you want to talk about Paige?" He said nothing. In that silence, I could see the old evening waiting for me. Evan at my kitchen table, coffee cooling between his hands, telling me everything his wife had done wrong while I kept his secrets, and sent him home feeling understood. "I can't be the place you hide from your marriage," I said. "I'm not hiding." "Then talk to her. She's the one I need to talk about." "I know." He hung up. I lay awake listening to the house settle, hating the boundary even as I held it. Somewhere across town, my son was hurting, and for the first time in his life, I was letting the pain remain where it belonged. At 2 a.m, I got up and made toast. Frank used to say no problem improved after midnight unless the problem was hunger. I ate over the sink, watching my reflection in the dark window. At 2:17, I picked up my phone. I typed, "Are you all right?" Then erased it. I tried, "I'm sorry you're hurting." That sounded like an apology for refusing him. I put the phone down and carried my plate to the dishwasher. At the kitchen doorway, I turned back, picked it up again, and wrote, "I love you. We can talk when you're ready to talk about us." The message showed as delivered. No answer came. By morning, I had checked 6 times. I called Celia at 9. She answered over loud voices and clinking dishes. "If this is about the scarf, I'm wearing it." "Where are you?" "Breakfast." "With whom?" "My friends." The answer embarrassed me, though it shouldn't have. I had known Celia possessed friends. I simply had not pictured them operating without me. "I can call later," I said. "Is something wrong?" "No." "Ruth." "Evan called last night. I didn't let him come over." "Good. He was upset." "Probably. What if he needed me? He did need you. He needed you to help him avoid something." I leaned against the counter. "You don't know that. Neither do you. That's why you asked." Someone near Celia laughed. A server called out an order. "I'm sorry," I said. "For what? For calling during breakfast? It's a phone. It has a button." "No, I mean, I keep calling you whenever things are bad." So I don't want to do to you what Evan does to me." Celia became quiet. When she spoke again, the sharpness had left her voice. "The difference is, I can say I'm busy. I never made it easy." "No. You're quite talented at making a sigh sound like a subpoena." "I'm sorry. That one I'll take." "I'm serious. I know." I heard her move away from the table. "You don't have to become a person who never needs anyone," she said. "You just have to stop treating need like a lifetime contract. I don't know what that means. Neither do I. It sounded good, so I went with it. I laughed. Go outside, she said. You get strange when you stare at walls, Donna called before I could obey. Plot 22 opened, she announced. What happened to the person who had it? Moved to Arizona. In April? People make bad decisions year-round. I asked what condition the plot was in. Terrible. How terrible. Do you remember when Mel planted squash in tires? He said the rubber held heat. It also held 17,000 ants. I drove over to inspect it. Plot 22 was a narrow rectangle near the compost bins. Chickweed covered most of it. A broken tomato cage leaned in one corner, and someone had left a plastic flamingo face down in the soil. Donna stood beside me with her hands on her hips. Prime location. It smells like compost. That's how you know it works. I'll take it. She turned. That was fast. I might change my mind if you keep talking. I spent the afternoon clearing weeds. Beneath the chickweed, the soil was dark and loose. I found 3 golf balls, a rusted spoon, and half a ceramic frog. Mel walked by and examined my progress. You should plant tomatoes. I'm not planting tomatoes. Everybody says that. I'm planting beans. Beans are unreliable. So are tomatoes. Not if you respect moon cycles. I threw a clump of chickweed at him. It fell 6 feet short. My arm was not what it had been during the Donnie Mercer ham incident. When I got home, Marlene was sitting on my porch. She stood as I came up the walk. I hope it's all right that I waited. How did you know I wasn't home? I didn't. I rang twice. She held a covered glass dish. I brought enchiladas. Did Paige send you? No. She doesn't know I'm here. I unlocked the door. Marlene noticed dirt on my knees. Were you gardening? I have a plot again. That's wonderful. You always love that. I could not remember ever discussing the garden with her. In the kitchen, she placed the dish beside Frank's flashlight, which still sat on the counter where Evan had left it. I put the flashlight back in the junk drawer. Coffee? I asked. Only if you're having some. That was Marlene's answer to nearly every offer. Coffee if I was having coffee, lunch if I was eating, a chair if nobody else needed one. She was not as helpless as we treated her. She had simply perfected a softer version of my worst habit. I made 2 cups. She sat at the kitchen table. Paige and Evan had a terrible fight. I don't think I should discuss their marriage with you. She looked surprised. But you already know. I know they're fighting. I don't need details. Marlene stirred her coffee, though she had not added anything. She says he blames her for the dinner. He has blamed both of us, depending on which conversation he's in. She should never have lied to me. No, I told her that. I looked up. Marlene generally delivered criticism through weather systems, waiting for the other person to notice the pressure change. How did she take it? Badly. I'm sorry. I'm not. She took a breath. I spent years telling her everything she did was understandable, because I thought that was what a supportive mother did. Sometimes it only made her more certain that understanding was the same as permission. The observation sounded costly. She's still my daughter, Marlene said. I love her. I know. And I love you. I didn't know what to do with that, so I drank coffee. I should have gotten up, she said. You didn't know. I knew something was wrong when you were standing there. I remembered her little wave from the table. I could see your face, she continued. I told myself Paige had explained it. That was easier than asking. You don't owe me your chair. No, but I could have walked over. Yes. We sat with that. She looked at the calendar. You crossed out Sunday supper. I followed her gaze. A line of black ink ran through the words, Evan Page, 6 o'clock. I had drawn it after they left with the supermarket food. Is it permanent? She asked. I don't know. Gordon misses your carrots. Gordon can learn to roast carrots. He burned them Wednesday, so he can learn twice. Marlene smiled faintly. When she left, she hugged me. The enchiladas stayed. I carried the dish to the refrigerator and realized I had accepted food without immediately planning how to return the favor. It felt rude. I left it there anyway. That evening, Paige called. I know my mother came over, she said. She told you? Gordon did. He can't keep a surprise for 5 minutes, but he thinks secrets are different. I waited. I'm not calling to argue about her, Paige said. All right, Evan told me you wouldn't let him come over Saturday night. That is between Evan and me. He made it between us. How? He said you refused to see him because I had turned you against him. That isn't what happened. I know. Eventually. I sat on the edge of my bed. The blue dress still hung over the chair across the room. I had stopped noticing it during the day, but at night it looked like someone waiting. What happened when he came home? I asked. We fought. That's your business. He told me he's been talking to you about our marriage for years. My stomach tightened. How much did he tell you? Paige asked. I'm not going to list private conversations. So a lot. He talked when he was upset. People say things differently when they're upset. Did you believe him? Sometimes? Did you ever tell him to leave me? No. The answer came easily because it was true. Did you want him to? She asked. I looked at the blue dress. There had been nights when Evan sat at my table describing a Paige who sounded cold, selfish, and impossible to please. By morning, he usually remembered the parts he had left out. I had never told him to end the marriage, but I had enjoyed being the house he came to. I had enjoyed proving that somewhere in the world, a woman still knew exactly how he took his coffee. I wanted him to be happy, I said. That wasn't my question. No, I never wanted your marriage to fail. She remained silent. I did like being needed, I added, more than was good for any of us. Paige let out a breath. I thought you hated me, she said. I didn't. You corrected everything I did. I thought I was helping. You rearranged my silverware drawer. Your knives were beside the pot holders. It was my drawer, yes. I moved them back after you left. That was your right. It took me 7 years to hear you say that. It took you 7 years to ask. That's fair. The words did not repair anything. They did something smaller and perhaps stranger. They made room. Why did you really call? I asked. Paige hesitated. To find out whether he had come to you before. He had. How often? I won't do this, Paige. Protecting him again. No, refusing to help you fight. She made a frustrated sound. Then she said, That's what you told him, isn't it? Yes. Another pause. I don't know if I should thank you, she said. You don't have to. I'm not ready to apologize. I didn't ask you to. That makes it worse. After we hung up, I took the blue dress from the chair. I carried it to the closet and stood there with it over my arm. Hanging it up felt too careful. Throwing it away felt theatrical. I folded it and placed it on the top shelf. Then I ate Marlene's enchiladas at the kitchen table, alone but not waiting for anyone. The enchiladas were too spicy and better than anything I had cooked for myself in months. I ate 2, put the rest in individual containers, and froze them. The old Ruth would have returned Marlene's dish filled with something homemade within 48 hours. The current Ruth washed it and left it empty on the drying rack. I was still deciding whether this represented growth or declining standards when Celia arrived the next afternoon. She walked into the kitchen, saw the empty dish, and put a hand to her chest. You're returning Tupperware with nothing in it? It's glass. That's not the part that shocked me. I'm tired of paying food interest. She opened the refrigerator without asking and found a container of enchiladas I had missed. Then this is mine. You just criticized me for not cooking. I'm supporting your journey. Celia stayed while I sorted seed packets for plot 22. I had bought 3 kinds of beans, basil, marigolds, and 1 package of tomatoes, despite everything I had said to Mel. You bought tomatoes, she said. They're a compact variety. You joined the cult. I'm not discussing this with you. She picked up a packet. Frank hated cherry tomatoes. He said they were regular tomatoes that refused to grow up. He said grapes with ambition. That was also Frank. His name no longer stopped the room every time. Sometimes it simply sat down with us. On the calendar, the date of his death waited inside a small penciled circle. Celia noticed me looking. Are you and Evan going to the cemetery? She asked. He hasn't said. Do you usually? Yes. Every year since Frank died, Evan met me at the cemetery at 10. We brought coffee and flowers, stood beside the grave for 20 minutes, then went to a diner where Frank used to complain the toast was never toasted. It was not a tradition we had chosen so much as one that formed before either of us knew how to object. You could ask him, Celia said. He could ask me. Also true, neither of us suggested she come instead. I appreciated that. Evan texted that evening. Tuesday. 10 o'clock? I answered, yes. He sent a thumbs-up symbol. I stared at it, offended by its little yellow cheerfulness. At the garden on Saturday, I planted beans in 2 rows. Donna accused me of putting them too close to the fence. Mel warned me that the moon was in a withholding phase. Janice said she would pay me $5 to plant the tomatoes directly over Mel's shoes. I was pressing a label into the soil when my phone rang. For a moment, I thought it might be Evan changing Tuesday's plan. It was Marlene. Did you enjoy the enchiladas? She asked. Very much. Too spicy? A little. Gordon said they weren't spicy enough. Gordon also thinks black pepper is decorative. She laughed. Then she said, Paige told me you two talked. We did. She won't tell me what about. That's probably healthy. She says you're different. The phrase no longer surprised me, but it still irritated me. I'm not different. I'm less agreeable. I always thought those were the same thing. At least you're honest. Marlene was quiet. Would you come to dinner next Sunday? I sat back on my heels. Who will be there? Just Gordon and me. Dana might stop by, but she probably won't stay. Paige and Evan aren't invited. Because of me? Because I want to see you without turning it into negotiations. I looked across the garden. Donna was helping Victor repair a hose. Janice and Mel had found a new reason to disagree near the compost. All right, I said. You'll come? Yes. Marlene sounded surprised enough to reveal how certain she had been that I would refuse. 6 o'clock? 6 is fine. After we hung up, I wondered whether accepting was a betrayal of Paige, or a punishment, or simply dinner. I decided not every meal needed to carry a verdict. Tuesday morning was cold and bright. I arrived at the cemetery at 9:52. Evan's truck was already parked beside the office. He stood near Frank's grave, holding 2 paper coffee cups and a bunch of yellow tulips. He handed me a cup. 2 creams, he said. That's right. The small fact almost undid me. We walked together across damp grass. Evan wore the navy jacket Frank had given him one Christmas. It was worn at the cuffs now. Frank would have disliked that and been proud of it. At the grave, Evan removed a few leaves from the base of the stone. I arranged the tulips in the metal vase. One stem bent sideways, refusing the shape of the others. Dad would complain about the price of these, Evan said. He'd ask why dead people needed fresh flowers. He'd say plastic lasted longer. He did say that. We smiled. For several minutes, grief allowed us to stand beside each other without solving anything. Then Evan said, Paige and I are seeing a counselor. I turned toward him. Good. Is that all? What do you want me to say? I don't know. Something. I think it's good. He put his hands in his jacket pockets. She says I use you to avoid talking to her. She's right. His face closed. I thought you weren't taking sides. I'm not. That doesn't make every point equal. She lied to everybody about you wanting to come for dessert. Yes. She planned the whole thing. Yes. And somehow I'm the one in counseling being told I created a triangle. You did create one. So did you. The words hung in the cold air. Yes, I said. He looked startled. I had spent several nights arriving at that answer. I still didn't like it. I let you talk about Paige as if she were a problem we could solve together, I said. Then I welcomed her into my house and pretended I didn't know what you'd said. That wasn't fair to her. I needed someone. You needed a friend who wasn't your mother. Dad listened. Your father told you to go home. He also told me you'd always be there. I looked at Frank's name cut into the stone. He said that? After Paige and I had that fight about Christmas, I was going to stay at a hotel. Dad said, don't waste money. Your mother will always take you in." That sounds like him. You say it like it was wrong. It was loving. It may also have been wrong. Evan shook his head. Now Dad's part of the problem. No, your father was a man. We were married a long time. He could be kind and still make mistakes. He's not here to defend himself. Neither was I at that conversation. He looked away. A groundskeeper's cart moved slowly along the next row. Somewhere beyond the trees, a truck shifted gears. "Can we go to the diner?" Evan asked. "I don't think so." His eyes came back to me. "We always go." "I know. So the cemetery is allowed, but breakfast isn't? I'm not keeping a list of allowed activities. That's exactly what it feels like." I wrapped both hands around my coffee cup. "I came because I wanted to remember your father with you. I don't want to sit through breakfast pretending everything between us is fine. I never asked you to pretend. You asked when Sunday dinners were coming back. That was weeks ago. Do you still want to know?" He pressed his lips together. "Yes," he said. "I don't know if they are." His face changed. "Ever?" "Not in the way they were. They were good, Mom. They were good for you. They weren't good for you. Sometimes I spent 2 days cooking so we could sit together for 90 minutes while you checked your phone and Paige asked when dessert would be ready. That's not fair. It didn't happen every time. It happened enough. Why didn't you say anything? Because I thought if I made being with me effortless, you'd keep coming." He stared at me. "I didn't know that," he said. "I didn't either." The bent tulip slipped lower in the vase. I reached to fix it, then left it alone. Evan said, "I'm sorry the dinner went badly." The words were careful and bloodless. "Is that what the counselor told you to say?" "No." "Then what are you apologizing for?" I just said. "The dinner didn't go badly on its own." He looked exhausted. "I'm trying to meet you halfway. Halfway between what? Between where we were and whatever this is. I don't want halfway between being excluded and acting like I wasn't. So there's no forgiveness unless I use the exact words you've decided count. I haven't decided any words. Then what do you want? I want you to know what you did. I told Paige not to change the table. I thought you'd be okay for half an hour. I was wrong. You thought I would endure it quietly. That's not what I said. It's what you counted on." His cheeks reddened. "You're enjoying this," he said. "Enjoying what?" "Having us chase you." Paige calls. Marlene visits. I apologize. And it isn't good enough. Everybody's finally arranging themselves around you. I could not answer immediately because the accusation touched something real and distorted it. Part of me had noticed the attention. Part of me had enjoyed every startled face when I said no. Power can feel a lot like dignity when you have gone without both. "I don't enjoy missing you," I said. "You could stop. So could you." He set his coffee on the grass beside Frank's stone. "Dad would tell us this is stupid. Your father told me many things were stupid when he didn't want to talk about them. Maybe he was right." Evan walked away. I watched him cross the grass without calling him back. He got into his truck and drove past me toward the gate. His untouched coffee remained beside the grave. I sat on the damp ground, ruining the knees of my good pants, and cried where nobody who loved me had to watch. After a while, the groundskeeper approached in his cart. He was an older man with a white mustache and a green cap. "You all right, ma'am?" "No." He nodded as if that were a complete answer. "Want me to take that cup?" he asked. I handed him Evan's coffee. He drove away without offering advice. I stayed until the tulips began to open in the sun. Then I went to the diner alone. The toast was barely warm. I ate it anyway. The waitress refilled my coffee 3 times without asking why I was alone. When she brought the check, she looked at the empty side of the booth and said, "Did your friend cancel?" "My son left early." She gave a short nod. "They do that." I almost asked how old hers was, then stopped myself. I had spent too many years making strangers exchange personal histories just because we shared one unhappy fact. I left a large tip and drove to the garden. My good pants were still damp at the knees. I changed into Frank's work boots in the parking area and spent an hour staking beans with more force than the plants required. Donna watched me hammer a wooden post. "Did the post insult you?" she asked. "It knows what it did." "You're leaning it." "I'm not." She stood directly behind it and tilted her head. I pulled the post out and started again. By the third attempt, my arms were shaking. I sat on the border of plot 22, and Donna lowered herself beside me with a grunt. "Getting up will be humiliating," she said. "I'll walk away and let you live here. Bring snacks." She didn't ask what happened. That made me tell her. Not everything. Just that my son and I had gone to the cemetery and I had eaten breakfast alone. Donna picked dirt from beneath one fingernail. "My oldest sister and I didn't speak for 9 years. What happened?" "She stole my pressure cooker." 9 years? It was a very good pressure cooker. I looked at her. "She didn't steal it," Donna admitted. "I loaned it to her." Then our mother got sick, and we disagreed about everything, so the pressure cooker became easier to hate. "Did you get it back?" "No. Her husband donated it after she died." "I'm sorry, I'm still mad." "At your sister?" "At all of us. We wasted a lot of birthdays pretending it was about an appliance." I stared at the bean rows. "This isn't about an appliance," I said. "I know. It's about a chair." "That isn't what I meant." Donna smiled slightly. "Usually the object is only where everybody stores the rest of it." She pushed herself upright, proving the process was every bit as undignified as predicted. "Your post is still leaning," she said. "I left it that way." Celia called that night. She had apparently spoken to Evan, though neither of them had enjoyed it. "He called you?" I asked. "He called to ask what you want from him." "What did you say?" "I said I wasn't your interpreter." "Thank you." "Then I told him what you want." "Celia, I contain contradictions. What did you tell him?" "That you want him to stop apologizing to the weather." I sat at the kitchen table, tracing a scratch in the wood with my thumb. "He thinks I'm enjoying this." "Are you?" The question annoyed me more from her than from Evan. "Not you, too. You trained me to ask the impolite question. I miss my son. That wasn't my question. I don't enjoy hurting him. I didn't ask that either." I closed my eyes. "I like saying no," I admitted. "Sometimes. There it is. It feels good to watch them deal with things without me. Does that bother you?" "Yes." "Good. It should." "That's helpful?" "You can be pleased that Gordon survived a parking garage without secretly hoping he clips a mirror. I didn't hope that. I would have." I laughed despite myself. Celia said, "Power isn't automatically bad, Ruth. You're just new at it. Try not to wave it around indoors." On Sunday evening, I carried Marlene's empty dish to her house. I had considered filling it with brownies. Then I considered putting a note inside explaining why it was empty. In the end, I handed it to her exactly as it was. She looked into it. "I washed it," I said. "I can see that. Celia says returning it empty is a sign of growth. Celia stole your scarf. She calls that growth too." Gordon had cooked. He wore an apron that said, "Licensed to grill," despite using the oven. The roast was underdone in the middle, and the carrots were black at one end and nearly raw at the other. "I followed the instructions," he said. "What instructions?" "You said to cook them until the edges browned, not until the smoke alarm contributed." Marlene laughed so hard she had to put down her fork. The dinner was awkward for the first 20 minutes. Every mention of Paige threatened to become a trap. Every pause seemed to ask whether Evan had called. Then Gordon began telling me about his experience in the parking garage. In his version, he had navigated a hostile maze designed by people who hated automobiles. Marlene said he had followed a delivery van through an open gate and spent 10 minutes in a loading zone. "The signs were misleading," he said. "One said deliveries," she replied. "We were delivering you." By dessert, I had relaxed enough to forget that I was making a point by being there. Dana stopped by for coffee but did not stay. She hugged me near the front door and whispered, "I'm sorry about your birthday." "Thank you. I thought you wanted to come later." "I know." Her face reddened. If I had known, you didn't." She looked relieved to be released. I wondered how many times I had offered that same relief because it was easier than letting someone sit with what they had failed to notice. I touched her arm. "But next time something feels wrong, ask me." She nodded. When I left, Gordon gave me a container of burned carrots. "For compost," he said. "That may be their best use." Paige's car was parked across from my house. She stood when I pulled into the driveway. No bakery bag, no flowers, no gift held in front of her like a shield. I carried the carrots to the porch. "Your father cooked," I said. "I recognize the evidence." She looked tired, but not careless. There was a difference. "Can we talk?" I unlocked the door. Paige followed me into the kitchen, but did not sit until I did. I put the carrots on the counter. "Evan doesn't know I'm here," she said. "I don't like being part of secrets between you. It isn't a secret. I'll tell him." "All right." She folded her hands on the table. "I owe you an apology." I waited. She gave a small, humorless smile. "You're not going to make this easy." "No." "That's fair." The kitchen clock clicked. The refrigerator motor started. Paige looked directly at me. "I excluded you on purpose." Hearing it said plainly was different from knowing. "I could have changed the reservation," she continued. "When Lauren and Scott said they could stay, Bellini's offered a larger table in the main room. It wasn't in the alcove, and it would have been noisier, but there would have been space. For 9, yes. You chose the alcove. Yes. Then you told your mother I wanted dessert only. Yes. Why did you still ask me what cake I liked?" Her face tightened. "I asked before I got the promotion call. And after? I changed the cake." I noticed. "I should have called you. You should have saved me a seat." She nodded. "Yes." The apology did not soften the facts. It sharpened them. "I spent years feeling like there were 3 people in my marriage," Paige said. "Me, Evan, and your opinion of me. Half the time, you never even said anything. He did it for you. He'd say, 'Mom would never buy that,' or 'Mom always hosts Christmas,' or 'Mom thinks married people should share accounts.' You were in every room without being there. I didn't know he said all of that. Some of it he invented. That sounds like Evan. I blamed you because blaming him meant admitting my husband was the one making me compete." I looked at my hands. "I also made it easy," I said. "I corrected you when you didn't ask. I let him complain about you. I liked knowing he came to me. You never told him to leave me. No, I believe you now. Thank you." She breathed in slowly. "When the promotion came through, I wanted one night that belonged to me. Then Lauren offered the champagne, Scott wanted dinner, and Bellini's said moving tables was the only way to add a chair. I thought about how every holiday shifted around whether you'd be alone. I thought about Evan comparing everything, and I decided you could be the one who adjusted. You wanted him to choose you. Yes, he did. No." Paige looked toward the dining room. "He chose not to argue. That isn't the same thing. It was an exact description of Evan, and it hurt to hear." "I knew you wouldn't shout," she said. "I knew you wouldn't demand someone's seat. I thought you'd smile, sit at the bar, and make it comfortable for everybody. I counted on your manners. My son did too." Yes. She did not protect him. She did not use him to protect herself. "I'm sorry," she said. "Not that you were hurt. I'm sorry I lied, excluded you, and used your birthday to force a choice you never asked him to make. It was cruel." The word entered the room and stayed there. I had wanted it named. Now that it was, I found no pleasure in hearing it. "Thank you for saying that," I said. "Do you forgive me?" "I don't know." She flinched. "I believe you're sorry," I continued. "Forgiveness may come. Trust will take longer." "How long?" "I can't give you a schedule. I hate not knowing where I stand." So did I. Paige nodded once. "Will Sunday dinners ever come back?" "Not the way they were. Evan thinks that means never. Evan thinks any boundary is permanent until someone removes it for him." A brief smile touched her face, then vanished. "I don't want the old Sundays either," she said. That surprised me. You came every week because Evan said you'd be alone if we didn't. I often had other invitations. He said you turned them down for us. Sometimes I did. Paige looked almost angry. Do you see what he did? Yes. We had each allowed Evan to present the other woman's needs as whether neither of us could question. I don't know what a relationship between us looks like now, I said, but it can't be built through him. I agree. And I won't be available whenever your family needs a driver, storage room, dinner, or place for Evan to cool off. I understand. You might understand tonight and resent it next month. I probably will. The honesty made me laugh softly. Paige stood. At the doorway, she glanced toward the dining room. For what it's worth, your birthday cake was supposed to be lemon. I know. Evan ordered tiramisu because he thought you liked it. I know that, too. She opened the front door. Paige. She turned. Congratulations on the promotion. Her eyes filled, but she did not use the tears to ask anything from me. Thank you, she said. After she left, I sat at the kitchen table until the house grew dark around me. Her apology had not restored the missing chair. It had done something more difficult. It had left Evan's choice uncovered, with nowhere else for either of us to put it. I turned on the lamp above the stove and found the burned carrots still sitting on the counter. They had gone cold inside their plastic container. I carried them to the backyard, dumped them into my compost bin, and stood there holding the empty container beneath the porch light. Frank had built the bin from cedar boards and insisted on attaching a hinged lid heavy enough to restrain livestock. Whenever I complained, he said raccoons had excellent upper body strength. I missed him so suddenly that I had to sit on the back step. I wanted to tell him Paige had apologized. I wanted to ask whether I was being too hard on Evan, and I wanted Frank to say no in that firm voice that relieved me of doubt. But Frank had spent 41 years making peace by assuming I could tolerate more than everyone else. If he had been there, he might have told me to invite Evan and Paige on Sunday, roast the carrots, and let the whole thing fade. He would have meant it lovingly. That no longer made it right. Paige sent one message the next morning. I told Evan I came to see you. I didn't tell him what you said. That's yours, I replied. Thank you. 3 dots appeared, then vanished. Evan did not call. At the garden, thin green loops had pushed through the soil in my bean rows. I crouched beside them longer than necessary, counting twice. 14, Mel said behind me. There are 15. That one is chickweed. It is a bean. You want it to be a bean. It has the seed casing attached. Could be deceptive. I looked up at him. Do you practice being this irritating? Natural gift. Donna came over carrying a clipboard and asked whether I would bring a dish to the spring workday lunch. What kind of dish? Edible. How many people? 20, maybe 30. Any allergies? Probably. Does anyone keep a list? Donna removed the pencil from behind her ear. I'm going to stop you before you turn lunch into a federal program. I'm asking practical questions. Bring something you like. Enough for 6 people. Other adults will also bring food. I thought of my dining table expanded with the leaf, every inch covered because I never trusted other adults to bring what they promised. I'll bring cornbread, I said. Buy it. I can make cornbread. I know. That's why I'm telling you to buy it. Celia came with me to the workday. She wore old sneakers and a pink visor that made Donna stare for a full 5 seconds. What? Celia asked. I'm deciding whether you lost a bet. It blocks the sun. So does dignity. Celia pointed at her. I like her. We spent the morning rebuilding the border around the herb beds. At noon, folding tables appeared beside the shed. There were 3 pasta salads, 2 pans of baked beans, deviled eggs, fried chicken, Mel's suspiciously gray dip, and enough desserts for a church dispute. My store-bought cornbread sat on a paper plate with its price sticker removed. Nobody knew I had not baked it. Nobody suffered. Celia and I ate beneath a sycamore tree. She asked whether I had heard from Evan. I told her no. Do you want to? She asked. Yes. Are you going to call? No. She nodded and bit into a deviled egg. I'm sorry I missed your birthday. I said. Celia nearly inhaled the egg. Don't choke. It will weaken the apology. She coughed into her napkin. Where did that come from? I've been thinking about it. That sounds dangerous. I'm sorry I sent flowers instead of showing up. I'm sorry I offered to make it up to you only when it fit around something I was already doing for Evan. Celia folded her napkin into a smaller square. I was mean about it, she said. You were accurate. I can be both. Yes. She looked out at the garden. I didn't need you at the restaurant that night. I had other people. I know. I needed to know I mattered enough for you to be inconvenienced. The word settled between us. I understand, I said. Do you? I think I'm beginning to. Celia looked at me. Then come with me to Milwaukee in September. What's in Milwaukee? A glass museum. You don't care about glass. I might. You just invented that. There's probably a glass museum somewhere near Milwaukee. I laughed. Ask me when you have a real destination. That's not a no. No, it isn't. When I got home, an envelope was tucked halfway under my front mat. My first thought was Evan. It was a coupon booklet from a lawn service. I stood on the porch laughing until I cried. The next afternoon, Evan texted, Can I come Tuesday around 4? I read the message several times. What do you want to talk about? I typed. His answer took 6 minutes. What I did. Not Paige, not Dad, me. I told him 4 was fine. On Tuesday, I cleaned the kitchen twice. The first cleaning was habit. The second was panic disguised as dusting. I almost baked something, then stopped myself with flour in my hand. I put the bag away and bought cannoli from the bakery instead. At 3:58, Evan knocked. He did not try the door. He did not bring flowers, coffee, groceries, or a restaurant box containing something I disliked. Come in, I said. He looked around the entryway. His eyes rested on the hook where Frank's windbreaker still hung, then moved away. In the kitchen, I pointed to a chair. Coffee? Yes, please. How do you take it? He looked at me, uncertain whether I was joking. Black. I know. I poured 2 cups. Mine had cream. His did not. The cannoli remained inside their bakery box. Evan placed both hands flat on the table. He had bitten one thumbnail nearly to the quick. I don't know how to do this without sounding rehearsed, he said. Did you rehearse? Yes, then sound rehearsed. He breathed out. The night before your birthday, Paige called Bellini's because Lauren and Scott wanted to stay for dinner. The restaurant said we could move to a larger table in the main room. Paige didn't want to move because she wanted the alcove. She asked what I thought. He stopped. I waited. I told her to keep the table, he said. She said there would only be 8 seats. I counted who was coming. I knew you made 9. My fingers tightened around my cup. I told myself Lauren and Scott would leave early, he continued. I told myself you didn't care about sitting through a long dinner. I told Paige you'd understand. You told her I always made things easy. Yes. The word hurt and relieved me at the same time. She was worried her parents would notice, he said. I told her Marlene would make a scene if she knew, so Paige said she'd tell them you were coming for dessert. I didn't tell her to say that, but I knew she was going to. And you let me come. Yes. You called about the dress. His eyes filled. Yes. Why? I wanted you to feel included. I stared at him. He looked down. I hear it now. You wanted me to feel included while knowing I wasn't. I didn't let myself think of it that way. What way did you think of it? As getting through the night. For whom? For me. It was the first answer he had given that didn't hide in a group. If I told Paige to change the table, he said, she would say I was choosing you again. If I told Lauren and Scott not to come, Paige would be embarrassed. If I warned you, you might decide not to come, and then I'd have to explain why. So I did nothing. You made a choice. Yes, I chose the person I thought would forgive me fastest. I looked toward the dining room. Evan continued before I could speak. When you arrived, I saw you through the partition. I knew what your face meant. I still waited for Paige to get up first. Why? Because it was her reservation. That's what you said afterward. I know. I kept using her responsibility to cover mine. He pressed his palms harder against the table. When you said you were leaving, part of me was relieved. That was the sentence I had not expected. Relieved? Because you didn't shout. You didn't make her parents leave. You didn't ask me to choose in front of everyone. You did exactly what I counted on you doing. I had to look away. And then I went back to the table, he said. Paige was upset. Everybody felt awkward. I was angry at you because leaving made it impossible to pretend the plan had worked. The text. Yes, I sent the picture because I wanted you to see us still having a good time. Then I told you that you ruined it because if you were wrong, I didn't have to look at what I'd done. The clock above the sink clicked through several seconds. I'm sorry, he said. I'm sorry I knew there was no seat and let you find out at the door. I'm sorry I asked you to sit alone. I'm sorry I watched Paige lie to everybody and treated the lie like a solution. I'm sorry I used your birthday, Dad, Marlene's appointment, and Sunday dinners to make you feel guilty for not fixing it. And I'm sorry I called you when Paige and I fought because I expected you to help me make her the problem. I could not speak immediately. Evan wiped his face with the heel of his hand. I've been trying to apologize in a way that would get you back, he said. I thought if I found the right sentence, you'd cook Sunday dinner and give me the key, and we could stop feeling like this. That wasn't an apology, it was another request. What changed? Paige told me what she said to you. She said she wouldn't. She didn't tell me your part. She told me hers. She said she had apologized without asking you to make her feel better. He gave a small, bitter laugh. I was furious with her. For apologizing? For doing it first? For leaving me with no one to blame? That sounded so much like the son I knew that I almost smiled. Evan looked at me. I'm not asking for Sunday dinner, he said. I'm not asking for the key. I don't even know if I should ask you to forgive me. You can ask. Do you? I looked at his bitten thumbnail, Frank's darker chair leg beneath him, the unopened cannoli between us. I love you, I said. I believe you're sorry. He nodded slowly. That isn't the same as everything being repaired. I know. Do you? I'm trying to. I opened the bakery box and placed a cannoli on a plate for each of us. You like these, he said. Yes, I really thought it was tiramisu. I know. He took one bite and powdered sugar fell onto his shirt. For several minutes we ate without talking. When he finished, he brushed the crumbs into his palm. What happens now? He asked. I don't know. His face tightened, but he did not argue. All right, he said. I walked him to the door. On the porch, he turned back. Can I call you next week? Yes. Should I ask before I come over? Yes. He nodded. Then he walked to his truck and left without asking me to make the uncertainty easier. I closed the door but did not lock it until his truck turned the corner. Powdered sugar remained on the kitchen table where he had brushed it from his shirt. I wiped it into my palm and rinsed it down the sink. The spare key stayed in the junk drawer. Evan called the following Tuesday at 7. Is this a good time? He asked. The question sounded so unnatural in his voice that I nearly laughed. It's fine. He asked about my bean plants. I told him Mel believed they were suffering from lunar confusion. Evan said that sounded serious and suggested a specialist. We talked for 11 minutes. Not about Paige. Not about Bellinis. Not about when he could come over. Before hanging up, he asked, Can I call again? You don't need an appointment to call me. I'm trying not to assume. That doesn't mean you have to become a customer service representative. All right. He called again the next week. Our conversations were stiff at first. We had removed the old pattern without replacing it. Whenever he sounded frustrated, I waited for him to mention Paige. Whenever I asked how he was, he seemed to search the question for hidden instructions. One evening, he said, Counseling was rough. I stood at the sink, trimming the ends from green beans I had bought because my own were still 2 inches tall. Do you want to talk about it? Yes. Do you want to talk to me or do you want me to agree with you about Paige? He was quiet. Both, he admitted. I smiled despite myself. Then call someone else for the second part." He laughed. "I guess I'll talk to you later." "You can still talk to me." "About what?" "About how you feel, not about everything she did wrong." There was another pause. "I feel embarrassed," he said. "That sounds difficult." "It is." We talked for half an hour. He never told me what Paige had said in counseling. I never asked. The beans climbed faster once the weather warmed. I built a trellis from wooden stakes and twine, ignoring Mel's suggestion that metal conducted plant anxiety. Donna gave me 2 pepper plants. Janice smuggled a compact tomato into plot 22 and denied it even after I found her plastic label. Celia came on Saturdays, mostly to criticize everyone's clothes and eat whatever people brought for lunch. She and Donna formed an alliance based on insulting me. "You prune like a woman with trust issues," Donna said one morning. "She peels apples too thin," Celia added. "That is a skill. It's fear of waste. You're both welcome to leave." Neither did. My first beans were ready in July. I picked them into Frank's old metal colander and took them home. My hand reached for my phone before I had decided whom to call. For years, I would have called Evan first. I would have told him to come by, then cook the beans so he could eat them at their freshest. Instead, I sent him a photograph. His reply arrived a minute later. "They look great. Save me some if you have extra." If you have extra. I sat on the back step with the colander in my lap, reading those 4 words. There had always been extra because I had arranged my life around producing it. I cooked enough beans for myself and froze the rest. The next time Evan visited, I gave him 1 bag. Paige invited me to dinner in August. The invitation came directly from her. "Would you like to come Saturday at 6? Evan will be there." "My parents won't. No occasion." I replied yes. I almost brought a casserole. Then I remembered I had not been asked to supply one and bought a bottle of wine. At their house, Paige met me at the door. Evan was in the kitchen finishing a salad. The dining table had returned after the floors were completed. It was set for 3. 3 plates, 3 glasses, 3 chairs. I noticed. Paige noticed me noticing. "Sit wherever you want," she said. It was painfully deliberate and exactly right. I chose the chair nearest the window. Dinner was baked chicken, salad, and potatoes. Real potatoes. Paige put the serving bowl in front of me and said, "I'm told you eat these." "Occasionally." Evan looked embarrassed. Halfway through the meal, he tasted the chicken and said, "Mom, usually." He stopped. Paige put down her fork. I waited. "Mom usually puts rosemary on chicken," he finished. "This is different. I like it." Paige narrowed her eyes. "Was that the revised version?" "Yes." "What was the original?" "We're in counseling," he said to me. I gathered. She laughed before she could stop herself. The evening was not warm enough to be called easy. We avoided certain subjects. Evan overfilled every silence. Paige watched him for signs he was performing for me, and I caught myself twice trying to reassure her that the potatoes were excellent. But when I stood to leave, I had not washed a dish, rearranged a drawer, or offered to take home anything they did not want. Paige walked me to the door. "Was this strange?" she asked. "Yes." "Bad strange?" "Not entirely." She nodded. That's about where I landed. Sunday suppers did not return. Once a month, one of us suggested a meal. Sometimes I cooked. Sometimes Evan and Paige did. Once we met Marlene and Gordon at a restaurant where Gordon sent back his soup because it was too liquid, and everyone survived. The meals became invitations instead of appointments. That difference cost us familiarity. There were Sundays when I wanted to hear Evan's key in the door, even though he no longer had one. There were evenings when I made too much food by accident and resented the empty containers. Paige occasionally declined an invitation without explaining why, and I had to resist reading rejection into it. The difference also gave us room to choose each other. In September, Celia and I went to Milwaukee. There was, in fact, glass in a museum, though not enough for Celia to claim she had been right. "You said a glass museum," I reminded her. "I said a museum with glass." "You absolutely did not. You can't prove that. We stayed 2 nights. Celia snored, lost her sunglasses in a restaurant, and refused to ask directions because she believed the lake should have been sufficient. I bought a small green glass bird for my kitchen windowsill. On the drive home, she said, "You checked your phone only 4 times. I checked the map. You were not navigating. I like to know where we are. We were in Wisconsin. I looked out at the road. I'm sorry I waited so long to travel with you. You already apologized. I know. Don't make it a hobby." We reached my house after dark. The porch light was on because I had set a timer, not because anyone was waiting inside. Celia carried my suitcase to the door. "Do you want me to come in?" she asked. "No, I'm tired." "Good. I'm tired of you." She hugged me. The brass key remained on her ring. She never used it without asking. By winter, the garden had gone brown. I left the bean roots in the soil the way Donna taught me and covered the bed with leaves. The plastic flamingo stood upright in one corner. Someone had painted Ruth across its side. Nobody admitted responsibility, though Celia had red paint beneath one thumbnail. Christmas dinner happened at Evan and Paige's house. Marlene brought pie. Gordon brought a carving knife in a velvet-lined box and spent 20 minutes sharpening it, despite the turkey already being sliced. Dana and Rick arrived with wine. Lauren and Scott were not there, and nobody mentioned them. Before we ate, Paige came to stand beside me. "I put you near Marlene," she said. "Is that all right?" "Yes, I can move you." "You don't have to," I wanted to ask. "I know." At the table, Evan sat between Paige and me. That could have felt symbolic if Gordon had not knocked over the gravy before anyone finished passing it. The evening became ordinary after that. Ordinary was harder to rebuild than love. Love could survive in declarations. Ordinary required dozens of small, uninteresting acts performed differently. Evan called when he said he would. If he needed to complain about his marriage, he told me he was frustrated without presenting Paige's prosecution. Paige asked for help twice that winter and accepted no once without explaining why my reason was insufficient. I visited Marlene because I wanted to, not because she needed transportation. Celia stopped treating every boundary like a houseplant that required daily encouragement. I made mistakes. I offered Evan my spare room when his office needed repainting, then called back and said I had answered too quickly. He laughed and rented a desk for 2 days at a shared workspace. At Paige's birthday, I gave advice she had not requested about serving temperatures. She stared at me until I said, "That was none of my business." "No," she agreed, "but the dip is cold." "It should be." "Still none of your business." We both smiled. When my next birthday approached, Celia began making plans without consulting me. "I'm booking dinner," she announced. "No, you don't know where. I'm booking it. You shouldn't be trusted with reservations." Very funny. I wasn't joking. I chose a small restaurant across town called Alder House. It had wide windows, plain wooden tables, and no alcoves. I invited Celia, Donna, Janice, and 2 women I had known for years, but rarely saw while Frank was ill. I invited Evan. I did not invite Paige. I told her before I sent Evan the details. We met for coffee so she would not learn through him. "I'm not trying to punish you," I said. "I know. I want this birthday to feel separate from last year. I understand. I don't know whether that's fair. It doesn't have to be fair yet." That answer surprised me. Paige stirred her coffee. "Do you want Evan there?" "Yes." "Then he should go." "I don't want him choosing me against you. He isn't. I'm telling him to celebrate his mother's birthday." I watched her face. "Are you angry?" "A little." "Thank you for telling me. I also understand. Both fit." The phrase belonged to Celia. I wondered how many useful sentences moved through families after somebody finally said them aloud. "I hope this isn't forever," Paige said. "So do I." She reached across the table and touched my wrist once. Then she withdrew her hand before the gesture could demand a response. On my birthday, I wore yellow. Celia arrived in the blue scarf and claimed the color combination made us look coordinated. I told her we looked like an Easter decoration. At Alder House, the hostess checked my name and said, "Your table is ready." Every chair was empty when we reached it. I stood there longer than I meant to. Celia touched my back. "You pick first." I chose the chair facing the windows. Donna sat on my left. Celia took the right. Janice immediately complained that Donna had stolen the seat with the best view. My friends arrived laughing because they had parked 3 blocks away after misunderstanding a sign. Evan came last, not late, just last. He carried a small bakery box tied with white string. When he reached the table, he kissed my cheek. "Happy birthday, Mom. Thank you." He looked at the remaining chair but did not pull it out. "Is this seat taken?" "No," I said. "It's for you." He sat down. Inside the bakery box were 6 cannoli. After dinner, the server brought lemon cake. Celia had apparently called ahead despite being forbidden to manage anything. The icing said, "Happy birthday, Ruth," and nothing else. We ate too much. Donna told the pressure cooker story incorrectly. Janice accused Mel, who was not present, of sabotaging her parsley. Evan listened more than he talked. When the check came, he reached for it. "I invited you," I said. "It's your birthday, and my reservation." He released the check. "Next time?" he asked. "We'll see." Outside, everyone gathered beneath the restaurant awning while Celia searched her purse for the valet ticket she had accused me of losing. Through the window, I could see our table being cleared. Crumbs, coffee cups, used napkins, chairs pushed back at uneven angles. Nothing about it looked perfect. Evan stood beside me, close but not leaning. "Can I call tomorrow?" he asked. "Yes." The hostess opened the door for another group and asked how many they were. I looked once more at the table we had just left. For one evening, every person there had been someone I chose, and every chair had held exactly who I expected. Then I took my coat from Evan's arm and put it on myself.